Yeah.
So I'm up there, bloody chainsaw and climbing up down hills. It starts to frigging snow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hard.
Lloyd?
Oh dear. Well, there we go. Happy days. You're recording now as well, aren't you?
It's Christmas.
You shit.
Well, did you find a tree?
I certainly did. And Heather only slightly opened her eyes at it and grinned. And I had to make a few corrections. But I think we'll get away with it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, the Appalachian Podcast. I'm your host, Billy Riddle. With me is my Irish supporting co-host, Simon Winch, back here in the Dimcast IRL studios once again.
Being caught in a pre-recording attempt again by Billy. Well done.
Well, there was a lot of effort put into that one because kind of ignored you for a bit, and you even brought up the fact I hadn't hit record, so I just continued to mosey on, and then I started hearing you come out with a story, and I was hoping we would get some kind of funny Chevy Chase Christmas vacation kind of story with you cutting the trees. Maybe your daughter's lips are frozen and your son, your other daughter's gone blind, or whatever the case may be. But unfortunately, you dropped the ball on us a little
Well,
bit.
it wasn't really a story. It was just what I'd done this morning.
It was super cold up there, right?
Yeah, it certainly was.
Snowing.
Different climate up there. Once you get over the Parkway and into the altitudes of Floyd, yeah, it's
Which kind of,
several degrees different.
Where we are in the Appalachian region itself, we're just so very unique, like our topography, our geography, because where we're at, we get a lot of we get the mountain views, we get some of the cool mountain weather and stuff, but we also, for the most part, we kind of get that more Piedmont, North Carolina weather, which stays a little bit, you just get up, beyond Roanoke up on Christiansburg Mountain and in the Floyd Mountain. That's just talking about an elevation shift of, maybe almost 1,000 feet. So they're always getting snow there before us, and it's just right over the mountain. So yeah, we're in a very unique spot right here in the Moonshine Capital. It's
Just in Ferrum, from where my parents live, like on the Ferrum Mountain Road side of the college to the side that I live on, which is over by Philpott Lake, it's dramatically different.
Yeah. But being on the eastern side of the foothills has been very advantageous, because we don't get the brunt of weather coming up and over the Blue Ridge. It seems to, hover and then just drift up the western side of the Blue Ridge.
It kind of breaks it up and slows it down and spreads it out.
And that's a blessing, I think. It's a longer growing season. We don't get the severities and such extremes as they do there. They were a good 5 degrees cooler this morning.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
That's another thing, the good growing season, that extra few weeks or an extra month, the leaves start changing down on Southwest Virginia a lot faster than they start changing this way. So,
well, you could feel it yesterday afternoon, evening in the air that it was,
there was damp in the air.
It was winter.
Yeah,
it felt like winter.
It just goes down to your bones.
Yeah, I came out of I had to run to Kroger last night, and I came out, and it was like 6:15, and I was like, oh my. And I was like, it's got to be in the upper 20s. I got in the car, it still said 41 degrees. I was like, man.
I'm in trouble this winter. Off to Florida we go.
Would be nice, wouldn't it?
Oh, don't even start.
Oh dear, it would. Thank you.
Hey, somebody in this room's getting to go to Florida and enjoy 75, 80 degree weather here, or that type of weather here at the end of the month. And I'll give you 2 guesses, and
Simon,
you're only going to need one, because I don't have.
The girls passed their scuba certification this summer, so we're going on a little dive vacation.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
What part of Florida?
It's actually the Bahamas.
Oh, there you go.
I said
even better.
Yeah, even better.
Yeah, and I will not be doing anything like that. And the reason, Simon, you want to know?
You better
tell me.
Do you
know why I will not be enjoying summer heat in the middle of the winter as you will be? Because, do you know why?
No, I don't, Billy.
Because I can't afford it.
Oh, man.
You know why I can't afford it, Simon?
Go on, Billy.
Because not enough of our listeners have signed up at patreon.com/getontap.
Bastards.
It's where you need to go to. I need Florida vacations, people. And the only way I can get Florida and look, don't think of yourself as I'm paying for his Florida vacation. Think of yourself as I am paying to help support the podcast so that money doesn't come out of his pocket to the podcast and we all win, but he can still take his own money and go to Florida. See, we don't, for our subscribers out there, we added quite a few here in the past couple of weeks. Thank you all. Welcome. It really does go for a lot of the things we're doing here in the future for the upkeep and the equipment. And most of the time we like to, buy a meal or a bottle of liquor or something for our guests here and there, cook a meal. It doesn't work out like that every single time. Today, we're being joined by Stuart Angel. Of course, y'all should recognize his voice by now. He's been on a handful of times. We're going to be talking conspiracies, all this. It's going to be a fun show, as the rest of them are. Every time we have him on, tons of people listen. It's a lot of fun. The conversations are great. They flow. It's one of the few shows I actually go back and listen to some of. And mainly I wanted to go back and listen to it today, just because it's only been 2 months since we had, but it feels like an eternity. And I don't know, truth or conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. But, so everything you do for our subscribers at patreon.com/getontap, it's just $3 a month minimum. That is 10 cents a day. For the money that you could be sending over to feed a poor kid in Africa, you could send to us that 10 cents a day.
I can't believe you went there, Billy.
Keep the flies off Billy. Subscribe to Patreon.
I'm saying in the long run, if more of you subscribe, that money will, at some point in time, if enough of you do it, give me like Elon Musk-esque money, and then I'll go over to Africa and I'll build them a whale or something. You know what I mean? Like, go through me, invest in me first.
We'll actually give them water and electricity, unlike the promises that our government's made to Africans for 100 years now.
I just like the way you tack that on to the Bahamas dive trip I'm going on. I'm like, man, I just took a cheap shot there.
Look at it this way. Subscribe so that Billy can be refreshed with a vacation, and then you guys get better podcasts.
Absolutely.
We go.
We're looking at video equipment. We need video equipment. We're going to be recording once again at patreon.com/ and hopefully at the end of the night here, we're going to have maybe a 20 or 30 minute like after show session. We curse a little bit more and talk maybe something really crazy. Maybe there's one conspiracy that comes in, somebody wants to talk about, we might have overlooked or something. And that's for subscribers. You get an extra 30 minutes when we have events like we're having coming up here in the near future. Ton of big names, big guests. We're trying to find ways to incorporate the community with these shows, to come hang out with these people, ask questions. People that should be, I think, put up more in our, like Henry Lee Law. Like, let's get Henry out to the Burger Company, record a show, have a few people come on, ask him some questions. That show's watched by a lot of people. Why? We should be selling this in this town. Like, come here, come see this place, come eat here, come hang out where Henry hangs out. Like, maybe you'll run into him and get an autograph. Henry would be glad to give you a picture or, that's kind of, it's a big deal. It's a big show,
I'd never met him before, and he came and watched the one country band I'm in, the Wildfire Band, play at Buddy's Barbecue, or what is it, Rocky Mountain Smokehouse.
There you go. If you know, you know.
Yeah. I went up and just said hey to him. He couldn't have been nicer. So.
He's without question one of the most engaging, TV stars, and he puts himself out there.
Yeah.
I
think he likes it. I mean, he likes it.
Oh yeah. I mean, who wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
But he's it's easy to go up to, have a chat with him. Helps you if you have an English accent, because then he listens just a touch closer. He can't understand a word I say.
No,
I need a translator, Billy, and you're no bloody good. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Well, I'm just saying that's a big part of it. And if you don't want to subscribe, which, like I said, it's only 10 cents a day minimum, you can also give more. But like I said, it's giving us these opportunities. If you just want to do a one time, you can go to Cash App or Venmo at Get On Tap. do a one-time thing, just say for a podcast, appreciate what you're doing. Also, if you're listening to us, whatever app you're listening to, go leave a review, a 5-star review, please. I don't know why, whatever, and say something nice about it. Say, I like Simon's voice, say, Billy, your mullet's awesome, or hell, talk about my mom. I don't care what you do, but if you leave a 5-star review, it puts us up in the algorithms. It helps show us to other people, everything we're doing here. It's a lot of fun. I love what we're doing, but I really want our community to build. I really want people to come to this area, spend money, hang out, invest. I want downtown to be vibrant. I want good music acts. I want multiple good music acts. I want multiple local music acts playing in local bars pre-gaming. You know what I mean? Like we have, this is not only the moonshine capital of the world, we're also the beginning of the crooked road. We have a lot of things we can capitalize on. So your support here, like I said, I'm not going out here and buying booze and buying stuff. I live very modestly. Like even when I get money, blessing from Timcast RL, by the way, check them out. Big, huge sponsor of the show. Their show's 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock every night, depending on which time zone you live in. I always listen to them after the fact, driving up and down the road. But, I got money from them and I shared it back around is what I did. I didn't keep it. I didn't hoard it. I went and bought something cool, new phone, new Xbox, whatever the hell. I shared it and reinvested it back in the show. So, it kind of sounds like an infomercial here, but I'm trying to just let people know we're doing a lot of cool things, fun things. We got the DC trip coming up here in the future, and we're really going to knock it out of the park. I haven't posted the photo yet, and big shout out to Photography by Beth Preston. If you need family photos, portraits, you want some funny stuff, if you got a wedding, if you got an event, you just want to
now that photo has been making the rounds.
And I haven't even shared it yet. I've been waiting for the right moment to share it on all of our pages. It's been making the rounds and I haven't even touched it yet. But it's probably going to be the photo that we use to announce our DC trip here on the internet here in the next. Stuart, have you seen the photo yet?
I don't believe so.
I'm going to.
She took a great series of photos and I'm still amazed at the quality that came out of them. Because it wasn't the best light that she was working with.
And it was frigid cold.
It was frigid cold. And she knocked it out the park.
It's pretty good.
I mean, I was looking at the light and thinking, oh, this isn't going to be that great. But she's, she did a great job. Absolutely superb set of pictures.
Absolutely. And so give her a shout. Check her out. Tell her we sent you. She's going to be doing some events for us, hopefully here in the near future. Also the people out there, Rocky Mountain Burger Company, always a good place to go, mingle, hang out, pregame. If you're going to go to the Harvest store, if you just want to go downtown and hang out, listen to some music, have a beer. Stuart, you all played downtown Rocky Mount a couple of weeks ago, and the weather was actually still decent enough that we sat outside and, 10 of us ate, had a hell of a meal.
It was nice. It was one of the last really warm weekends we had, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes you luck out with the weather.
Yeah. We were really worried. It was November 4th.
Oh, you're rolling the dice. We were like,
oh man, it could be 40 degrees or it ended up being 70. So it was nice.
Yeah. I like the, the Jack burger, whatever it is, the fried egg.
Just because it's got bacon on it, Billy.
It doesn't matter if because it's got egg on it. I can get bacon on any burger anywhere, but the egg, I like it. I like the flavor and Cajun fries, and I always got to get me a handful of wings. And then also Buddy, I don't know if I got to shout him out on the last show. I think I did. Rocky Mountain Smokehouse, they provided our little preschool event or whatever up there with some macaroni and cheese. I had no desire to put any effort into making mac and cheese. And his is good. Next time I'm going with the beans though, because everybody else makes mac and cheese. So, but his got gobbled up obviously because it's Rocky Mountain Smokehouse. Macaroni and cheese, super good. So, Buddy's always good, big contributor here in the community. So when you're coming into town, when you're, saying, well, hey, I'm coming to where Henry Lee Law's from. And at some point in time, you're going to say, well, I'm coming to where Simon and Billy are at. Stop by the Smokehouse, stop by the Burger Company, call up Beth if you got an event. Hopefully the hotel will be done soon. And when that hotel is done, we can start having conferences and getting people here that have the ability to stay. We're really going to start having some fun with this. I have no doubt.
Oh yeah, no question. No question. It's going to go from strength to strength.
Come to the Smokehouse on December 16th because the one country band I'm playing is playing there that night.
Oh, there you go. Get that plug in early.
Yeah. We've got a huge lineup musical acts coming up here in the near future. I think this weekend we're going over to 5 Points. We're going to be recording a show with, I can't remember his name, Marshall Hicks, maybe.
Yeah, Marshall.
Us and Tyler, I'm hoping that morning sometime. And then after that, show with Larry Keel and Kobe Helms, one of the up and coming musicians. I've seen him on like Sirius XM, like Country Outlaw and stuff here lately. Like they play his music on there, and another reason to celebrate this town. Another reason, but we're gonna be over there doing that. I think we got Crawford and Power on the hook for here, maybe next week or the week after. Ain't never heard nothing back from 49 Winchester, but that's probably to be expected.
And Crawford and Power are playing at 5 Points.
They are playing at 5 Points December 23rd.
December 23rd.
There are no more tables left. So, unfortunately, we probably need to start getting our tickets. You're going to be coming back from your Caribbean vacation. I don't know if...
Well, I see how it all times out.
Well, we'll have your tickets. I'm sure if you don't end up using them, somebody will most certainly go, because last year they tore the roof off that place. It was, you know, my wife and, you know, Stuart, y'all like fish, and they do some really good fish bands over there, some dead cover bands and stuff. I enjoyed the Jared Stout band over there when I got to see him last year. But the Crawford and Power show is the one show I've been to. It was just jam packed. The place was rocking.
Yeah,
they can really work a crowd. I'm excited to get
that was a great venue
show.
For them as well. You know, because sometimes the venue fits the band fits the venue.
Yeah,
and when it doesn't, it's horrible.
It's rough.
And it was hand in glove. I mean, it was the perfect environment for them.
It was. And in the wintertime too, you know, it's a little cold outside. You get inside and you get toasty and warm with all the bodies, and you know, you step outside to take you a smoke or something and get back in there. But you know, I love 5 Points. I love supporting those guys over there. I know, Stuart, you played for him for some of the outdoor festivals.
Yeah, we've played inside a bunch there too.
Probably before I started going over there, because if y'all had definitely played since we've been going, I would have.
That band's actually getting back together, it looks like. So,
what band is that?
That was my band, Yale.
Okay,
yeah, that's what we're talking about. Because TJ had a baby, and then our bass players had some health issues, but it looks like everything's kind of lining back up for us to pick things back up. And in fact, I think next week is going to be the first time we get together in a while.
Right.
So, but yeah, we love 5 Points. Tyler was so nice to us. He let us shoot like a video to kind of help get us started for some promotional stuff there. And then during our first year, he booked us at a bunch of stuff just because, you know, we all kind of know each other and stuff, but he believes in what we were doing, and there isn't a better guy for local music around here that I've ever met than Tyler. So
he's a unique talent.
He really is.
My thing with Tyler is I think the sky's the limit for somebody like him, because he's super motivated. He's really, really smart. Honestly, if he wanted to be somewhere bigger right now, he probably could be doing it. And I think it's something, you know, I think as he grows, his venues may grow. He may end up taking over a bigger place and managing a bigger place for bigger shows. But I hope he always keeps that place. I hope he always keeps it with the local vibe, and he, you know, continues to show up there every.
I think honestly, I think he's where he wants to be. You know what I mean? I think he wants to maximize, and not that 5 Points couldn't like move to a bigger place at some point, but I don't ever see him at like a mega sized place.
Because you kind of lose kind of place.
You kind of lose the hands-on, you know, thing that makes what he does so special. You know, and the fact that it's like the perfect place for him to do all the outreach stuff that he does, and you know, the hearing initiative stuff is so important to him, and has been such a big part of his life and his, you know, and his connection with his love of music and everything. I don't know. It all feels like he's, you know, like hand in glove. He's like exactly where he's supposed to be. And I just think that what will end up happening is that 5 Points will just become even more successful than it already is.
Oh yeah.
That's what I see.
That's inevitable.
That's what I see.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I think he does have his hands in some other things. I'm not necessarily sure how in depth it goes, but I know he's done some events in collusion with the Coves, who's up
Yeah,
Hill in Appalachia, and then he has the
partnered with
outdoor
stuff,
stuff too. Maybe at some point in time, one of his outdoor things goes to a bigger event. Maybe that's more along the lines of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Is his outdoor events start becoming more of a festival, bigger spots, bigger locations. Because that's one thing this Roanoke area lacks, like a really good music festival. The entire region, like a really good. But I mean, there's. Floyd Fest is there, but I mean, Roanoke is a whole other entity in itself that you're also, Floyd Fest cover this side, but you've got Lynchburg, Roanoke, Bedford, all this stuff. You got more access to the interstate and stuff. Like Floyd Fest can still be there and you can still have another good event somewhere in Roanoke.
Yeah.
Like
you could, yeah.
That's such.
Yeah, they got that great open air amphitheater there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could do one big part of the festival there and have other, like the South by Southwest, whatever other parts of the city.
Yeah.
You have, and I'm sure they do something like that, but really get behind it. Let's have some good bands in there. Like bring somebody big.
There is something that they were doing, and I don't know if kind of COVID messed that whole thing up or not, but I remember in 2018, 2019, they had this thing where like it went on for almost a week, and it was like bands at Martin's and at the Dr. Pepper Amphitheater and then at this place. And I think 5 Points was part of it. They were having bands, and it was like this thing. It went on. I don't think it was necessarily like a festival, but it was like this, I don't know, Roanoke Music Cooperative thing or something. I forget exactly how it was.
Edinburgh does that with a festival in the summer with live performers that pretty much take, all of Edinburgh over for a whole week.
Yeah.
And, there's key areas in the city that they all go down and perform in. So it's on that sort of line. Yeah. Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, because, I mean, you could have, as far as all the, you could have a couple mega acts that come to the Civic Center. That's like headliner type deals. But
the Civic Center sound is so bad over there.
It is.
It's not really built for it. I mean, yeah.
It's not, but you don't have like you don't have an amphitheater around here that'll hold 10, 15, 20,000
No, that's
people,
the problem. That's why I mean we need something.
Well, that's what Victory Stadium was supposed to turn into. Like there was in fact, my dad and I were talking about this the other day, that when they tore Victory Stadium down, that he was saying that he had thought that there was like some sort of promise that something was going to get rebuilt there. And what it was supposed to be, at least at one point, was kind of like this quasi sports / amphitheater kind of concept where it could host sporting events like it always had, but then it could also be like a major concert venue, outside concert venue for Roanoke. But
well, I also remember that, maybe there was also talks of one a few years ago somewhere down 460, heading down Orange Avenue, or going towards Botetourt in that direction. Yeah. But, none of that ever materialized. But, I mean, you could even do something like that. You could have, a big act, couple big acts going on at the Civic Center, a couple medium to big acts going on at Elmwood Park, and then set off a couple of streets with some other, like you could really do something with the area and draw some people around here, I don't know. I think there's so much red tape and nonsense and governmental bureaucracy and permits and all this kind of crap. It's just like, why can't the town just get together and say, all right, we're going to shut the street off. We all agreed to it on this road. It's going to bring a ton of business to all of our businesses. Who cares what people think? Shut it off.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to go ask somebody, somebody if every business on that street agrees, shut it down.
Yeah.
And put up a stage and have a concert and people come in and out of your bars or your restaurants or eating or merry. And, God, people just are so pent up these days and so miserable and angry. Get them out there and give them reasons to go enjoy life for a minute.
Yeah. Good luck.
The 150th, the latest street shutdown festival for the day went, I thought, really, really well. They lucked out with the weather here. There's no question about it, but that went off great. 150th anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
That was a superbly done event.
Yeah, it did go off well, but it's easy in Rocky Mount. You know what I mean? It's like there's 2 streets you shut down, and it's an easy
workaround.
Well, there's easy ways around if you want to go around. If people are used to it around here, because for certain, like the Christmas parade every year, the there's 4 or 5 events every year where they shut the whole thing down, starting right at the burger company.
And guess what? Each one works.
It does.
So, yeah, let's do more.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, it's a toughie, right?
Well, the Rocky Mount could do a better job in like maximizing entertainment and other things at the events that they throw. Like, I think that I think they're starting to get the hang of it better with how to like make an event flow, kind of, and have this going on at this time here, then this going on at this time here, and then this going on, you know what I mean? So it kind of like builds up a crescendo.
Well, I think if they're building up the existing ones, that's a great thing. And just taking every opportunity that you can.
Yeah.
Why not? Right?
Yeah.
Well, this is a very fun roundabout way to ask everybody to please subscribe to patreon.com/getontap. For these reasons, for these upcoming shows, we got Tyler getting over there, setting up all this kind of stuff. We thank you. And like I said, 5-star review anywhere you can. Check us out. I wanted to ask, how y'all's Thanksgiving weekend was, and did you have a good time? And
it was, you know what? It was very peaceful. Yeah, it was. We had Heather's folks had us over. I say had us over just down the driveway. They did the dinner. It was delightful, very chilled, very relaxing, perfect.
Do y'all eat turkey a lot in England?
Well, turkey, funnily enough, in recent history, has been more of a Christmas. You have your turkey, your roast turkey for Christmas. And obviously we don't celebrate Thanksgiving the way you guys do here. We do a harvest thing. So yeah, we do turkey, but not necessarily at Thanksgiving.
How about you, Stuart?
It was great. I now cook the turkey every year, so I enjoy doing that. And we actually bought a local turkey from the name of the local farm just slipped my mind. But they sell chickens, and they
Castle
actually
Hills?
No, it's right off of 122. It's a small little outfit.
J&P Meat Processing?
No. I can't think of the name of it right now. But anyway, I signed up to get a turkey from them because they had a limited number. And unfortunately, we were out of town because my grandfather had passed away. So we had to go to Indiana. So I got back, picked the turkey up Wednesday morning, the day before Thanksgiving. The guy carried it out of the house and could barely hold it. It was the biggest turkey I've ever fixed in my life. It had to have been 25 to 30 pounds.
Oh, that's
I don't know exactly how big it was.
And you can't they're very difficult to put those in fryers, as I found out a couple of years ago.
I didn't even try to fry it, but it was like hanging over the pan I had. And we did actually start a fire in the oven for a short period of time with fats running off the turkey and dripping onto the heating elements. So, but it all turned out perfect. It was delicious. And we always just do it at my parents' house, and we had a great time. And
yeah, 25-pound bird is a monster.
It's huge. I mean, I walked away with damn near 10 pounds of turkey. We've been eating sandwiches every day since then. So
I cheated and did something I wouldn't normally do. And I used some of the turkey leftovers in a fajita filling.
Uh-huh.
So it was all in with all the fajita spices and blah blah blah, and it was great. Because sometimes reheated turkey isn't all it is set up to be.
Yeah,
it can be a bit dry and all that. But doing it this way, as in the fajita filling, was that works out really well. Dad
did some teriyaki turkey the other night, and he said that was really good. I've just been doing it as cold sandwiches. In fact, I don't even eat that much turkey on Thanksgiving Day. I'm more of this turkey sandwiches the day after Thanksgiving is my favorite. So.
Turkey curries, actually, they make very good curry, funnily enough, too.
Huh.
Oh, yeah.
I need to smoke a turkey. I'd like to do that because I tell you what, those smoked turkey legs you get at a Virginia Tech football game is some of the best. People, I ain't gonna pay that bull hockey. Save me the trouble. It's worth $14 if I don't have to worry about the trouble of doing it. I can just hand you a couple dollars and eat it. I could eat 3 of them in a game, one each quarter, and hell, I take one in each pocket on the way home. There's something about them. They're so delicious. They're just mouth watering. I'm getting hungry thinking about them. Let's talk about something else.
Billy's about to get hangry.
I most certainly am. One thing I did want to say before we, really dive into it is, around here for our region and honestly for nationwide, especially if you're a big baseball fan, we lost kind of a local hero legend to a lot of people. Ron Hodges this weekend. He played 12 years with the New York Mets. We've had his son on the show one time for about 15 or 20 minute segment way back a couple years ago. They're tough. I love them to death. Been friends with them for an awful long time. 2 youngest sons, more specifically, the oldest, our relationship is more of a law and unlawful citizen guy kind of deal. More of the time I see him, it's usually blue lights involved. But love the family to death. They're great people, and just sorry for their loss and for Peggy and Nat and Casey. Riley and Gray, I've known all of them, hung out with them at different points in time, one or the other, but they're 2 youngest I've known for as long as I can and hung out with them. And Ron was such a good dude and such a good mentor to so many guys. So many young baseball players went on to have phenomenal careers and in the sport, and even more so became good, fathers and men and stuff like that. So it sucked because I've said many times on this show, Ron is the one person I wanted to get on the show more than anybody, because it's like I started the show for people like him in this area that, have phenomenal stories. And he's 2 minutes down the road, and I'm real good for, like, me and his Nat, we probably talk once a week on the phone. He lives down in the Outer Banks. And, and it was just they're just baseball players or something. They're different, like we had Nick on here too. They're not as eccentric as, say, our NFL friend.
A little bit more reserved.
Yeah.
Yeah, not quite so wild.
No, and sometimes more tight. But at the end of the day, I always told everybody, I said, honestly, I think Peggy probably would be the better podcast host, because the wife was there for all of it. She was there for every bit of it. And she has the best stories. And she knows, the ins and the outs, and can...
Yeah, that's a big loss to the community for sure. I mean, I've heard his name in all the circles, and never a bad word has been spoken.
I thought about doing a show this week, maybe immediately kind of honoring him and stuff, but I didn't want to, not this fast. I just didn't want to, I thought about it, and I was like, I wouldn't want to do this fast or anything. I don't want to jump on it and make it seem like I was trying to capitalize or anything, because I've always wanted to talk about it. So maybe here in a few weeks, we'll bring Abe or Carter back on and tell some good stories. And maybe in 6 or 7 months, I can talk Peggy into coming on here, as I've wanted to for so long anyway, because the woman's perspective is always the most interesting.
Oh, yes.
So with that,
and their memories are always better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, because they didn't spend all that time damaging them by, slide tackling into first baseman and doing wheelies or drinking or whatever it is guys do to kill brain cells. So with that being said, you see what I did there?
Yeah, that was almost a seamless transition, Billy. Get one of your professional sort of.
Well, you hate those type of phrases.
Yeah, I do. Actually, Heather hates them even worse.
Well, good. That makes me feel it, because I'll go after her next.
There you go.
All right, so let's get into the meat and the bones, because there's so much going on. Like I said, the last time Stuart was here was only 2 months ago. Does anybody even remember what the hell happened to that jet? There wasn't a war in Israel going on. The aliens in Mexico.
The January 6th tapes hadn't been released.
Yeah.
There's so much has gone on.
Still 6,000 hours not released. You have to wonder why that is. Because, look, I mean, let's be honest about it. You know that immediately when that happened, because I've been following this January 6th thing since it happened that day. I was on the phone.
Oh, we were all watching it live. Can you believe this?
Well, I was watching, so I had, like Fox or whatever on the TV, but then on my phone and on the computer, I had different streams up of people who were actually there in the crowd. And so, like, a lot of things they were trying to show on TV, I think were maybe jazzed up somehow because
choreographed.
I wasn't seeing the same things.
No, the corporate media don't do that sort of thing. How could you make such an accusation?
That's right. That's right. Of course they don't.
They don't cherry pick
or just completely make things up. Like a few years ago when Trump was president and they were trying to get a war started in Syria, and they claimed that ISIS had like bombed this whatever.
Oh, it was a chemical bomb, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a chemical bomb, or there was
some
a big
chemical
explosion,
weapon.
and they showed this on the news. This giant explosion happened. Well, it turned out it was from a gun range in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was a massive firefight is what they were claiming it was.
Yeah. Meanwhile, it was like this yearly event that they held at this gun range in Kentucky where they put all this crap together and made a big explosion. And yeah, it was this nighttime thing they do every year.
You would have thought they would have been a little bit more integrity with their stock footage.
Well, look, if you had back in the day, they used to, and for this is for the kids out there, this is dating me and showing my age a little bit, but you used to have these big giant satellite dishes, and we had one. And what it allowed you to do was, it allowed you to have cable basically out here in the sticks, but it also, you could get the raw feeds of these networks. So during the first Persian Gulf War, Papa Bush's war in 91, you could get like the raw CNN feed. So like when the presenter would go, when they would go to commercial, you would still be watching the presenter's desk and what happened. So the makeup person would come out and you could still see it and all that. Well, during CNN's coverage of that war, they were completely staging all of these bombing events that they were saying was real, that they were putting on TV. And people pulled the raw feed footage off of these satellite dishes. And, you can actually, I think you can still go on YouTube and find where they were faking these bombing attacks back then. So,
wow.
Yeah. But with the January 6th stuff, it's, that they had their AI computers going through all of the footage immediately and pulling out pieces where their federal informants or their operatives could be identified and getting rid of that.
But you're suggesting that some of that footage might be in the 6,000 hours that hasn't been released?
I would say that is the 6,000 hours that hasn't been released. That was clearly a Fedsurrection. They like to call it an insurrection. It was a Fedsurrection.
Well, I think that verbiage put it to a new level as well. That allowed them to apply just another set of rules.
Well,
so to get to slide that in and call it an insurrection when it wasn't, there was a reason why they wanted it to be tagged as an insurrection, because there was more political motives behind that as to what they could legally do subsequent. Yeah.
Well, let's take a step back. What was supposed to happen on January 6th? Okay. What happens traditionally on January 6th during an election year like that, is that Congress comes together and certifies or doesn't certify the previous, election, the one that happened.
The ballot.
They certify the ballots. Well, and what was supposed to happen on that January 6th is they were actually going to take a 10-day pause on certification, and they were going to kick all of these things back to the states to have the state legislatures actually look at all the fraud that had occurred during that election. Because, I think anybody with eyes that can see knew that at the very least there was some fraud. And if you've really looked at it, it was a complete and total sham of an election. It was complete.
81 million votes from a basement-led campaign.
Yeah, right.
Come on now.
And when have we ever stopped counting the votes And then all of a sudden, when we start recounting the votes, the exact totals have flipped, basically, from where Trump was on top. And then all of a sudden, we start recounting. Now Biden's completely on top. The whole thing was a sham, and that's a whole different topic. But so January 6th was supposed to be a day where they kicked these things back to the states for 10 days, and they were actually supposed to have 2 hours of debate for each of the contended states where all of the fraud that actually mattered had been perpetrated. So really the congressional session that day should have gone on for, I believe it was something like 12 hours. So 2 hours for each of the 6 states, 12 hours. And what this whole event did was it prevented any of that from happening. So now the majority of the American public, instead of focusing on the fact that we had this completely fraudulent election and, a stealing of what the people actually wanted, instead now it's all focused on this event that happened that day where they're claiming that people that probably own more guns than anybody else in the country attempted to overthrow the government without any of those guns. It makes zero sense.
And let's talk about that, because this is kind of a good, I don't want to say segue because it's kind of on the same thing, but a reason Stuart's here tonight is we were trying to work out to get Laura Logan on the show, and her people have reached out to us, been back and forth the last couple of weeks, finding a good time. And Laura is a phenomenal investigative journalist. I'm sure she's been all over CNN. I'm sure she's been a host on there at one point in time. Fox, MS, all
she
those
was on
places.
60 Minutes for a time.
Yeah, I mean, she's been to places, and she's got a very good reputation. And she's just got done doing this, and she's still in the process of filming this series on Ray Epps.
Uh-huh.
So I have watched bits and pieces. I want to be able to watch the whole thing a couple days in advance of our show to be able, but Stuart has watched all of it. So kind of fill in people on like who Ray Epps is and why is it necessary for a huge investigative journalist like her, who's going to be a guest on this show, by the way. That's why you should
there we go. I like that, Bill.
Yeah.
I like that.
We're getting people like that is a big reason why you should subscribe at patreon.com/GetOnTap.
That was seamless.
So Ray Epps.
Ray Epps he was a former Oath Keeper. All right. He was a member of the Oath Keepers chapter in Arizona. This would have been back in 2011 or so until around 2014. And then he left the Oath Keepers. The Oath Keepers, just as a quick aside, is a organization that was founded by Stuart Rhodes, who is now serving 23 years in federal prison for doing nothing. There was no plan to overthrow the government. They have produced no plan to overthrow the government. He has been convicted in a kangaroo court and
much like
and locked away.
Enrique
Tarrio. Meanwhile, actually, the Oath Keepers were actually helping the police that day try to calm the crowd down. And because of edited and not having access to video footage, the government has spun this web that these guys are domestic terrorists when they're the farthest thing from domestic terrorists. In fact, in 2020, when a lot of these cities were getting overrun during the summer of love, it was the Oath Keepers who were coming out and protecting businesses and helping these cities and, from being completely overrun and torched. So, Ray Epps, from all that it appears, was probably the outside breach team leader, if you want to look at it that way. He was in every key position that day on January 6th where breaches were happening on the outside. But to kind of start the story, the day before, a guy named Baked Alaska, who there's a lot of questionable information about this guy out there. My guess is that he has worked with the feds in some form during different points of his existence, because he actually wound up in Nancy Pelosi's office that day and yet didn't really serve any time for being in there. So that's a whole nother thing. But the day before, on January 5th at BLM Plaza, on Baked Alaska's live stream, Ray Epps is heard telling the crowd, "We need to go into the Capitol tomorrow." And he says this several times.
Yeah, I've seen several clips of him stating.
Now, what Laura Logan was able to uncover by using her investigators to scrub every corner of the internet, she actually found parts of the live stream that no one had ever seen before, where Ray Epps whispers in Baked Alaska's ear, "We're going to storm the Capitol tomorrow." He uses those exact words. And then she actually was able to uncover where it appears that Ray Epps had been stalking Baked Alaska at several of the other rallies that had been going on in the months leading up to January 6th, which is it's very Fed behavior. I mean, let's be honest about it. It's Fed behavior. And the thing is, when he yelled out to the crowd, "We're going to go into the Capitol tomorrow," everybody started chanting "Fed" at him. The whole crowd was going, "Fed, Fed, Fed, Fed."
They knew
because anybody who starts saying stuff like that is a Fed. I mean, they're working with the government in some form or fashion. Or some private security group that isn't under contract with the government, because they play these little semantic games where, well, no, he's not actually FBI. Oh, no, he's not actually, this or that. He may very well have been being employed directly by Nancy Pelosi that day. That's what it's more and more looking like, because it appears that Ray Epps was leading the outside team, and it appears that Nancy Pelosi's daughter, who was making a documentary about January 6th and everything going on that day, was actually kind of directing the whole scene of everything going on. And her husband was one of the people on the outside kind of conducting things from afar also, which not many people know that was going on. But yeah, so she, Pelosi's daughter was making the documentary. Pelosi's son-in-law was directing things from like the balcony of the Capitol. Ray Epps is in the crowd, obviously working with a team of, I don't know, I would probably say like 6 to 10 different people.
Now, Pelosi actually, from my understanding, was the top of the command chain for the the Capitol Police.
Yes.
And she denied several requests for National Guard.
Yes.
And that automatically thinks, what? Hang about.
Yeah.
What? Can you smell something?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. And Trump had actually, in the days leading up to January 6th, had made requests to have National Guard there, because there were going to be so many people in D.C. that day. I mean, they try to say there were a couple 100,000. There was over 1 million people in D.C. that day. So you've got Ray Epps on the outside working with, and actually Darren Beatty and the Gateway Pundit have done excellent work on identifying all of the people that Ray Epps was working with that day. There's like the tower commander. So there was this guy up in one of the towers set up outside the Capitol, because there was all this scaffold. He's called the scaffolding commander. There's all this scaffolding set up from this construction they were doing, and he's like barking orders through a bullhorn from the top of the scaffolding, telling the crowd to move forward, move forward. And so they're directing this whole thing because they understand group psychology, and they know that people were upset. They specifically released the Mike Pence announcement that he wasn't going to challenge the electors at exactly the right time to help rile the crowd up. You've got Ray Epps helping bust through the first line of cops at exactly the right time. And then Ray Epps also winds up at each subsequent line where they're busting through the cops and directing people to do so. And then you've got Ray Epps on the outside. You've got Pelosi's daughter on the inside. Then you have John Sullivan on the inside, who was working for CNN that day, who happens to be the guy filming and standing right there where Ashley Babbitt gets shot. So he's working directly with CNN. The whole thing was completely orchestrated. I mean, it was completely orchestrated.
I don't even think.
Now, she was the only person murdered
No,
on that day.
no.
Was that not
There
the
were,
case?
so they like to try to say that there were Capitol Police officers killed that day. There were none.
Yeah,
Right.
None.
The
But-
original story was one of them was beaten with a fire extinguisher, but obviously a couple of days later it comes out and says he had a stroke, but by then the headline's already out there, and even if this is just like pharmaceutical companies, it's like, okay, let's put the opioids out there and we'll make $10 billion. Oh no, they'll fine us $1 billion.
Exactly.
And same thing with this. It's like,
So you had Ashley Babbitt, but then you had Rosanna Boylan, who was beaten to death by Capitol Police, and they don't like to talk about her. And then there were two others that died as a result of their injuries sustained from Capitol Police officers that day. And you can also see that some of the Capitol Police were obviously in on this because they used this technique called kettling, where they were shooting munitions and like smoke bombs and stuff over top of the crowd. So they were landing behind the crowd to make them move forward. So this whole thing was completely organized and set up with key people in key positions to create the scenario that they got. But I don't think what they expected though was that most of the people who weren't all of the people who weren't on the payroll who entered the Capitol were completely polite and nice and stayed between the velvet ropes and didn't damage anything and said thank you for your service to the officers that they passed,
who were getting ready to throw them in cages.
And so I don't think that they expected the crowd to, but they should have known that that's how, our side of people would have been going in there. Those are hallowed halls, So it didn't turn out the way that they really wanted it to. And that's why the lies since then, trying to turn this into a 9/11 style event that it just never was, haven't really panned out, because they expected people to really come in there and try to take the place over. And that just wasn't what happened.
And that's my thing too. And maybe this isn't real life, but you sit on Twitter quite a bit, and who knows how many are bots or what's going on with that. But there are quite a few people out there that you'll see, and it can't be all, but how does anybody look at that event and agree with anything? Like, if this is a person you voted for and this person is comparing this to 9/11 or something, like how, as you as a human, have any, like how are Democrats polling at anything above 1%? This is, you can look at this event as just a normal, average, everyday human being and say, well, no, this isn't like 9/11 at all. This isn't, and now that it's how, like you said, and you'll still have 15 or 20% of the population to this day that'll still believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like Russiagate, just like everything, that you're 15 or 20, and those 15 to 20 will be the ones who are amplified the most in the media and magazines, newspapers, online articles, movies, TV shows, like these, that's right. It's mind-boggling.
It is mind-boggling.
Well, those that control the press control the narrative.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, and that's why they're so strong with the censorship online and kicking people off of YouTube and Twitter and everything else. I mean, look, I'm not the biggest Elon Musk fan, but at least Twitter has become somewhat of a fair battle space now for narratives,
But I say, once you've launched that narrative, you're committed to it. And now we're seeing it all fall apart.
Well, yeah, it's completely falling apart. But what they count on is the fact that, people don't even care about it anymore and aren't going to go back and look at it. But I think the beast has been awakened with people realizing that they're just being lied to about all this stuff.
Being played like a banjo.
Well, that's the thing,
Whilst they're putting, really
meanwhile
innocent people.
Yeah. Meanwhile, 2 weeks ago, you have people storm the Capitol. The Palestinian protesters, or the war going on over there, protesters storming the Capitol and actually shutting down stuff and everything else, but yet that's just swept completely under the rug. You've got a Democrat congressman who pulls a fire alarm to stop a vote from happening.
That's happened since our last show.
Who somehow is not going to be punished for it, who's not, you know what I mean? Meanwhile, a 78-year-old grandma who happened to be caught up in the crowd and walked into the Capitol and prayed and then turned around and walked out. The FBI has hunted her down like she's some sort of crazed terrorist and is trying to throw her in jail for 10 years. You know, you have like in Michigan, so these states with the elections, you can have alternate electors. So the way that the Electoral College works is that in each state you have a set of electors, but you can have alternate electors that will be ready to vote the other way. And that is actually how Kennedy ended up winning the 60 election against Nixon, was that in Hawaii, there was a set of alternate electors for Kennedy. And when they recounted some of the votes there, they realized that Kennedy had actually won. So his electors were ready to go, and that's what allowed him to win that election. Well, in Michigan, they had a set of alternate electors ready to go for Trump. And the FBI in Michigan, whatever it's called exactly, the same people that ran the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping hoax, are going after these people and throwing them in jail. Meanwhile, they're all over 60 years old. They're all grandparents. They're all just normal, everyday American citizens, and they're making them out to be terrorists, and they're trying to throw them in jail for years and years and years for doing absolutely nothing except what is legally allowed under the law with our election system.
Well, never mind legalities, throwing somebody in a cage for anything other than murder, rape, or, hardcore rob, is ridiculous, especially this. I mean, in a cage, in solitary confinement for many of them, 22 years, 23 years, 15 years for some of these people for nothing.
Yeah.
And the police officer, Capitol police officer who fired into the crowd and killed a U.S. Air Force veteran, Ashley Babbitt, was scot-free.
Yeah, the same guy who had lost his gun in a bathroom 3 years before and didn't lose his job. Yeah. Michael Brown, I believe is his name, Officer Brown. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, like Joe Biggs, he got 17 years. And he was a former InfoWars host. He worked with Alex Jones for several years. Never had a criminal record. He got a terrorist enhancement on his sentence because he shook a fence. He never went into the Capitol. And the day after his sentencing, he went on InfoWars to talk about his trial and stuff, and they spent the next month doing what they call diesel therapy to him, where they drove him around to 17 different prisons in a month, where he's handcuffed in the back of a bus just breathing diesel fumes all day, every day, and they weren't feeding him.
Whoa.
They also then threw him in solitary confinement in a metal cell in his underwear at 55-degree temperatures. No blankets, no nothing. They're torturing these people. Owen Schroyer, an InfoWars host, is locked up for 2 months for just saying the election was stolen. The feds tried to claim he didn't even actually work for InfoWars. Meanwhile, he's been an InfoWars host for the past 7 years. I mean,
how is this going to roll out? Because I don't see a good ending here.
Well, so you can get away with this stuff there. Because in D.C., it's insulated. Nobody there is going to step out of line. Nobody's going to step up for these people. Something like this happens more rural community. Obviously, there would be people surrounding the courthouse and pitchforks. And
I would hope so.
You would like to think. But you don't see it like that very often around these areas for that reason.
Yeah, that's true.
And, and the whole Ray-Epps and January 6th thing is it's there's so much into it. I encourage everybody to go out there, follow Laura Logan on Twitter or X. I'm sorry. I guess she's on Instagram or Facebook. Go watch these Ray-Epps videos because we're going to have her on here soon and we're going to be talking about them and educate yourself so you know what and tell your friends, tell people truth.
The Gateway Pundit has been publishing her stuff every time she releases one of these videos, and the Gateway Pundit and Darren Beatty from Revolver News have been Darren, the Gateway Pundit, and Laura have been the three best sources digging into all of this January 6th Fedsurrection stuff. I mean, they really have it completely mapped out as to what went on.
Was that your scoop, by the way?
What scoop?
Lara Logan. Was that your announcement of the scoop of getting Lara Logan?
No,
on
we've
the show?
we announced it here about 30 minutes ago. Yeah.
Well, no, I know, but that sounded a little bit more formal.
Well,
Billy.
I want people. I mean, if she's going to come on the show, obviously, I want people to go listen to her and pay attention to what she's going to say, because that's a big guest to get on here, and that's a massive resume builder for us. I mean, you go to people and say we had Laura Logan on this show. The fact that her people reached out, and I'm pretty sure her guy, he was just like, I saw you post something on X, it was pretty based.
Yeah,
that's what he said. The only thing I can think he would have probably saw that day when he reached out was, I don't know, these thugs in the ghetto, and they had all their guns and they're just dancing. They had switches on the back of them, and all I said under it is like, well, they got a right to do it. And that just, so many people lost their minds over that. I'm like, there's so many variables to get to why this is dumb. It is dumb, but there's a lot of variables you got to get to of why they should be able to do it, and why in a normal society this wouldn't be acceptable and it wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Yeah, I want everybody to go check it out. We're going to have her on there, and we could talk about Ray-Ups forever and ever, January 6th, but this is a phenomenal segue. I like using professional stuff. Simon, speaking of professionalism, I actually took down notes for this show. I'm starting to think ahead of time when I have a guest, I'm going to write down little notes on my, just things that I want to bring up and make sure we try and talk about for some of them. And not that I plan it or anything like that, but for a conspiracy show, I mean, these could go on for 19 hours. I mean, if we had a bunch of Colombian Bam Bam in here, we could probably do a 24-hour podcast nonstop on conspiracies and never stop. I mean, just 2 months.
They're prolific, aren't they?
So, yeah.
Prolific.
But kind of a segue. I wanted to when you're talking about all these people being locked up for ridiculous reasons in X amount of time, let's jump on to Ireland, because this isn't the one. I really wanted to lead with a different conspiracy recent. We'll get on that, but Ireland, number one, those are people who tell Simon what to do over there when he was growing up. So he's got a vested interest in what they're doing. But two, this is a massive, essentially I can't remember her name or her position, but she's government official, some commie, some, ugly white woman, basically saying, oh, well, your God-given rights aren't necessarily yours anymore. They're there for the common good.
Oh, kiss my ass.
Something like that.
Yeah, she's a member of parliament, but this is across the board with a lot of the leadership in the UK and in Ireland, and
sadly,
and why she is saying this stuff.
But what she's saying is that if you have anything that they deem as hateful speech, anything that they deem as hateful speech on your social media or anywhere on
or memes on your phone
or anywhere on your computer, that then they can come and basically lock you up. And they've deemed what Conor McGregor said, and all he said is that we're at war. We're clearly at war. And they've deemed that as hateful towards the illegal immigrants that they've brought into
now mind you, this whole thing popped off, and this is insane. People really need to pay attention to this, right? This is how fast. And actually, as we're speaking, I just saw something on X pop up where the mayor of Chicago is saying the exact same thing right now. It has come here. Basically, what had happened is like a handful of immigrants stabbed to death like some school children or something.
I'm not even sure if they killed any of them. I think they killed one of them, but they stabbed several school kids and several adults too. And then a group of very capable Irishmen figured out where all of these migrants were being housed in a Holiday Inn Express, and quickly barred the doors to the place and summarily burned it to the ground.
Now, see, I didn't know that all happened.
Yeah, I didn't know that's what
all
happened, and basically turned Dublin into a bit of a war zone for about 24 hours, where lots of things were being lit on fire. But yeah, they're burning them out. They're getting rid of them, and the
thing is like, yeah, this is in response. I mean, people in their government in Ireland is saying, your outrage for Irish citizens getting stabbed is unjustified, but it's okay for them to come. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. They're not taking up for their own citizens in the least, and now they're calling them right-wing extremists and terrorists and threatening them to lock them up for.
No, but
that's the Marxist narrative, isn't it? That's their playbook.
Well, but that's what they want.
Of course.
They're trying to provoke the reaction, because then the narrative that they've laid out that us right-wing extremists are extremists then actually comes true. But so it's a delicate balance of how you handle this situation, and
What has anyone come up with the motive for these terrorists that did the stabbings?
well, because I don't want to be mean, but most of them are sub 80 IQ. Most of them are used to raping and pillaging and killing where they came from. So what do you think's going to happen when you stick them? I mean, look, this has been going on in Germany for years now, where these migrants have been running around raping blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls.
Because you're importing that.
Yeah.
With that immigration, you're importing that culture.
Yes, that's what you're bringing in.
They're not assimilating. Nobody wants to assimilate, and the government
No.
don't want them assimilating. They just want them there. And
Well, it's
why
more division.
is the
Chaos.
question.
More division.
Yeah,
Chaos favors the operation.
Yeah.
Chaos favors. Look,
and they're bringing in, and think about this too. They say they're economic refugees, but photo after photo, and it's all military aged males. Now, why is that? Well, military aged males, they're not going to assimilate. They're not going to reproduce, and they'll probably be gone in a generation. And they'll probably end up, once they've done whatever they need them to do, they'll probably be sent back or whatever the case. They'll die out.
You've touched on a point that, and I made an observation yesterday, and it may be, I'm not going to say, but it was a bigoted observation. And it is what it is. Are you noticing that a lot of these economic refugees that are flooding across the border, I'm not going to mention the obvious, military age males, there's no kids and no wives and girlfriends. They're all wearing new shit.
oh yeah,
Everything they're wearing is new.
new cell phones.
And if they're these economic refugees, they're all cell phoned up.
They should be in rags.
And I'm not seeing any economic deprivation. It's not visible.
No.
And it should be.
Yes.
I mean, unfortunately. But it's not. It's kind of weird. That doesn't fit.
None of it fits.
None of it fits.
None of it fits, Simon.
And you look at them. I mean, these are all Nike brands, and
nicer stuff than I have.
Yeah.
I've seen some of Dallas Cowboy jerseys. I'm like, it's a $90 jersey.
Yeah.
I can't afford that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all coming across the
If
border.
you go to patreon.com/get on tap and subscribe, I can afford a $90 jersey to the immigrants.
Plug. that with no mercy, Billy.
Well, the thing is, so you've had what went on in Ireland, and it's something like that is going to start happening here. That's what people have to understand, is that, look, they admit 15 million people have been let into this country, and if they're admitting 15, double it to 30. At the least. So 30 million people. And like I mentioned to Simon just for a second earlier, I was watching a guy who has a very popular YouTube channel who goes around to different parts of the country. And he did a ride along with a former Chicago city cop, and the city cop was telling him how the migrants have taken over every police station in the city. They're sleeping in the lobbies. And he said, in the wintertime, we would let the homeless come in and sleep in the lobby. But then first thing in the morning, we kicked them out. He said, we're not allowed to kick these migrants out. They've taken over these police stations. They're there all day long. They're bringing in mobile shower units for them to use on a daily basis. They're bringing food into them. Now, who's bringing them these services? I'm assuming it's kind of these George Soros funded, non-government organizations.
Follow the money.
But I think it's also partially
it's obviously being funded
I
by
think
taxpayers.
I think it's taxpayers, because now you've got in Chicago, where hundreds and hundreds of these residents of Chicago who were promised, and one of the reasons they've been voting Democrat supposedly is because they were promised all these services and promised all this stuff. Now they're showing up at city council meetings demanding that they get rid of these people because they're taking over all their neighborhoods, they're taking all their services, they're taking everything. But I think that this is all part of the orchestration, as we've talked about the other times that I was here.
Yeah.
If you're going to have a great reset and you're going to have a new world order, these are the types of moves you would make to make that happen. Because what a better way to rebuild a city into a smart city than have the people that live there just burn it down themselves because they're so angry at the people you imported in.
You know, you say that,
You know?
you say that about Ireland and about how it's coming here. And,
Yeah.
I'll just read this. This is breaking, as I mentioned a minute ago, from Colin Rugg. And I implore anybody to go follow him on X. You know, he's a good journalist. He reports on some good stuff, and we're back and forth with him a few times. I'd like to get him on the show some point in time. We get a lot of engagement from a lot of his followers too to come over and start following. But he says Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, and in case you didn't know, Beetlejuice is no longer mayor of Chicago. Somebody said her name 3 times and sent her back to hell where she belongs.
That was a joyous day, by the way.
What's that?
That was a joyous day seeing the back of her, that lunatic.
It didn't get any better. It got,
No, of course
I'm
it
sure.
got worse.
Yeah,
Of course
it probably
it
got
got
worse. It always gets worse. But Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson lashes out and blames right-wing extremists for Chicago's problems and says Republicans are mad that black people are free. Now, mind you,
What?
Chicago has been under the control of Democrats for over 100 years now.
My
But I digress. The left, this is Colin's post word for word. The left always blames others for the problems they create. Instead of taking responsibility for the failed liberal policies, Johnson claims Chicago was targeted by Republicans. What we've seen is a very raggedy form of right-wing extremism. Everyone knows that the right-wing extremism in this country has targeted democratically run cities, and quite frankly, they have been quite intentional about going after democratically ran cities that are led by people of color. It's the same Republican right-wing extremism that stormed the Capitol. There we go. It's the same right-wing extremism that refuses to accept the results of the Civil War. It's raggedy, it's disrespectful, it's mean-spirited. They're still mad that a black man is free in this country. Those are the words of the Chicago mayor. Now,
That's
He's
worse.
got
if I recall,
dementia.
I would love to see the crime statistics of Chicago and find out the race of,
I
you
can
know what I
tell
mean?
you-
Like, and this isn't a black or white thing, but he made it a black or white thing. So, I mean, let's dive into it and look at the numbers if we're going to do anything. I would probably bet my entire studio in here that it's probably 75 to 80% Democrat voting African American people committing most of the crime in Chicago. I mean, this is the same exact rhetoric you're hearing from Ireland, you know, that it's these people that are causing the problems. It's not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not a Republican by any means, but you can obviously see what it is for what it is. You know, Republicans aren't in cities. They don't have a lot of say-so in cities. It's been the case. Like, Baltimore's been under control by all a black mayor, city council and stuff for decades now. Same with Chicago. So what are we talking about?
But they're doubling down on their rhetoric, as you say, and that's surely a sign of desperation, because you know there's just nothing behind that statement apart from division and hate.
That's it.
Well,
You know?
it's utter lunacy is what's behind
But the fact
it.
that he's been given a mouthpiece to spread this
Yeah.
garbage
Well, but that's
just blows my mind.
Well, it's all, yeah, but that they've look leading up to that 2020 election, and then with COVID and everything else, the mask has come off with these people. He's working for Team Global. He's working for Team New World Order. They will do anything to achieve their goals at this point. They will rape, pillage, kill, murder, steal. They will do it all. They will tell
Well, I
any
mean,
bold-faced lie.
Those statements are actually inciting.
Yes, but that's what they're meant to do.
Yeah.
They're meant to incite violence. They're meant to incite so that the statement he made actually becomes somewhat true. But I mean,
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
the utter lunacy of what that statement was, though, that somehow right-wing extremists are the ones causing these problems in Chicago.
Like old Juicy Smollett. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they're hardcore MAGA people walking the streets of Chicago at 2:00 in the morning
Yeah.
for a sub when
Yeah,
it's like
in-
minus 5 degree weather.
in
That's,
minus degree weather.
yeah.
Well, look, he's taking a different tact. Look at what's happening to Mr. The brand New York City Mayor Adams. You know, New York's got its brand. It's not Kansas City. You know, we're New York City. Blah blah blah. Look, he came out against this illegal immigration, and he starts complaining about it. And look what's happened to him. FBI investigating his candidate, his running for governor
Secretary or whatever.
Yeah, and now
Egyptian money.
Now the 30-year-old sexual assault charges come up. So, you get into these positions that these guys get into, and they're holding you by your tail. And so you take a stand like he's taken a stand against illegal immigration, and they're going to ruin this guy and get rid of him. And so the guy from Chicago's taking the other tact. He's just going to keep doubling down on this white people, the devil narrative. And it's insane. But look, black people are starting to see through this. I really think they are. I don't know if I mentioned this before or not, but a guy that I kind of follow and listen to that's done such excellent work on figuring out like the structure of these elections and how everything works. He was part of a team that actually did some canvassing after the 2020 elections in Philadelphia. And what they found was in these districts and places where they said that Biden won by 95% to 5, it was actually Trump had won 60-40 when they actually canvassed the people in those areas. And there were some of these people that said, yeah, I've actually been voting Republican since 2012 now. But they're stealing these votes and saying that these areas are still 90-95% Democrat voters. So, I mean, I think the jig is almost up here.
Well, this is an easy fix as far as voting is concerned, and I don't know why there should be no machines involved. We've never needed machines. What needs to be done is you show up to vote. If you're legally able to vote, which means you're a tax-paying citizen, then you go up there, you show your ID, you get marked off, and then you vote. And that vote is hand-counted by 3 different people in the back, an independent, a Republican, and a Democrat. Whatever the case may be, there's 3 people there. You count them, and then you all turn them in. There should be no machines. There should be anything that can be hacked should not be part of an election. And anybody that says that's nonsense, well, they're probably not going to win any elections. Once again, these topics go on forever. I know it all kind of tied in together. I want to jump to something really super crazy, and this is the big conspiracy here lately that's really revamped up. And Stuart, if you haven't paid much attention to it, or you don't know, then we won't spend a lot of time on it.
Stuart knows.
I hope so.
You know he does. Come on.
But here, about a decade or so ago, we had Malaysian Flight 370 that went down in the South China Sea, I believe. Okay. And forever and ever and ever, nobody knows. There's no wreckage that's been found, nothing. I mean, just completely vanished. Well, here recently, these videos have come out, and I kind of watched a couple of them, and there has now been up to probably $250,000 for anybody that can come debunk these videos. But the video that I saw had like heat vision on the plane. Like I Stuart will probably be able to tell you like how these guys got to this point, but the heat images on the plane is flying. There's 3 orbs circling the plane. And then all of a sudden it just vanishes into thin air. So the theory is that it just basically teleported somewhere. And these guys have, like I said, they've offered up almost $250,000 for somebody to come in and tell them what they did is CGI or some kind of fakery. But I don't know much about it beyond that. What's going on?
Not fakery.
The other thing I'd like you, because clearly you're chomping at the bit here, but there was a while back, and I can't even, it may have been 18 months ago, they were saying they were finding bits of fuselage or tail or some of the wreckage from that. So I think we've got to address that first before we go into, the purple smoke coming out and teleportation. So what's the deal with what they claim to be wreckage? Is that still out there?
Well, that could be anything. They claimed that a passport flew out of a terrorist pocket after, those planes allegedly hit the towers and brought them down. And oops, that couldn't find the black box. It's specifically meant to be able to survive the depths of the ocean or mountain blast or anything like the black box. Couldn't find it. But we found the guy's passport. So what they say they found, I could probably answer that one for you, Simon. It might be a load of hog shit.
Well,
I was just wondering if that's been debunked.
Oh, well.
Well, I mean, I didn't even know they had claimed they found
couple of
certain
little
pieces
fragments
here and there. I mean, because I just kind of thought that, well, they disappeared that plane off to Diego Garcia base and got rid of the 20 or so. I forget, what are they, like semiconductor or...
Yeah, there were a bunch of scientists on board.
They all worked for this same firm, and they were about to have some big breakthrough on something, or had the breakthrough. But I actually saw the presentation by, I think the guy's name is Austin something. I watched it. He was on somebody's show. I watched the whole hour and a half, 2-hour presentation that the guy put on. And, I mean, it's crazy. But what it looked like happened, and what the guy giving the presentation said is that he thinks that someone from the military actually kind of screen recorded this stuff as it happened and realized something crazy was going on. And because it looks like some of the video that's shown, or the videos that have gotten out, were actually from like a Reaper drone that was watching this whole thing happen. So, and what it is that happened, what it is that happened is, so you've got MH370 flying through the air, and then all of a sudden you have these orbs appear. So first it's one, then it's two, then it's three. They're little white orbs. The same sort of orbs that you've seen in a lot of other kind of UFO type, talk and stuff. And the orbs start...
Do you see them?
I got it.
The orbs start circling the plane. And, yeah, it's crazy. The orbs start kind of circling the plane, and this goes on for a second. And then they start going faster and faster around. And what the theory is that they're creating some sort of like, time vortex, basically. And kind of like,
because they're moving at a rapid rate of knots.
Yeah, they start going quick, fast around it. And
is Ashton Forbes the one you're talking about?
Yes,
Ashton Forbes.
Yes.
Okay,
that's who.
Not Austin.
Yeah, Ashton. Okay.
Ashton Forbes.
And basically, kind of maybe similar to we talked about the Philadelphia experiment and how it jumped timelines, and basically something similar to that. I think is what happened there. Is that whatever these entities or these orbs are able to bend the space-time continuum and just moves that plane over into a realm that we're not able to see. And who knows exactly where it went or exactly what happens after that, but they're able to like do the heat, change the, the complexion of the videos to show you just the heat signatures and all this other stuff. And the Ashton guy goes through a bunch of things that show that, look, this isn't something you could fake, and here's why you can't fake it, because of this, and this. And at least to me, it all seemed plausible. I wasn't like, oh, this is baloney, And I've got a pretty good bullshit meter. So,
here's his recent post, the one I was referring to. Talking about getting a shout out on Tim Pool's show. He said Corridor crew failed completely to debunk the videos and embarrass themselves again. No one has found the supposed hoaxer who took no credit. No one claims their fake can produce the source files. $145,000 on the line. $100,000 from Kim.com, $20,000 from Investigate Earl, and $25,000 from a wealthy follower who has run for higher office. So that's up to like $200,000 for anybody that can prove that these videos are fake. And I'll show you at the end of the show, Simon. I'll show you the full video. Like, well, here you can. Let's see. I mean, watch right there. Watch the plane just disappear.
The whole thing only goes for 20, 30 seconds.
But the plane just disappears. If that's the one,
it's crazy. But I tend to think it's real. I mean,
where on earth did it? Whoa!
Did it show it?
Whoa!
Yeah, it just disappears.
Whoa! But with
there's
circular poof.
There's a poof. Yeah, a poof.
Oh wow, that's pretty compelling.
Yeah,
that's pretty compelling. But what I find more compelling is that we even have that footage.
Well, that's what this Ashton guy was in the. He did several long form interviews with a couple different people.
I mean, where did that come from?
I forget who the one that I watched was with.
Which sounds almost like a hacking thing, because if they had video, those images on that plane, then they obviously expected something to happen with that plane. That's why they had the images on there.
That's what he was saying.
So how he found
somebody expected this, that knew that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So my guess is this was some sort of, look, we have all sorts of technology that we can't even imagine that we have. And
there's some coercion in that footage.
And so my guess is that somebody who knows things that we don't know knew that something like this was going to be going on, and was probably the person who was in charge of monitoring this event, and decided that this is too important. People need to know this, and smuggled a copy of this shit out the back door somehow. Now, unfortunately, that person may be sitting in a cold, damp cell right now in their underwear.
Well, they're probably eliminated.
Whatever, but
the thing is, it's such. The story in itself, beyond this, it's such a perfect cover, because either one of two things happen. And I was with you originally. I thought, well, if you got 18 scientists on board who have all this kind of information, most likely the plane landed somewhere. They moved everybody off board and said, well, unfortunately for some of you people, you happen to be on this plane, and either they executed them or they sent them to some island somewhere. Well, this is where you're going to live the rest of your life. Or it did go down in the ocean, because I don't think, and that's the one thing that maybe call me devil's advocate here, but I think that's one thing that people can't honestly grasp. Like that's why me and Simon, sometimes my biggest fear in the world is the freaking ocean, because it is so massive and it is so just like a plane could go down in there and you would literally never find a thing. Well, that is very possible.
I don't know about that, because look, they can spot a pimple on your ass from space at this point. You know what I mean? They can read a license plate from space, or from their satellites that are floating on balloons around the atmosphere. So I never bought that it just crashed in the ocean and they lost the plane.
I didn't think that happened either, but what I am saying, though, is the ocean has swallowed up.
Oh, it's massive.
More.
Yeah, where's Amelia Earhart's plane?
You've been around the world probably a handful of times. There's nobody coming to save you there at some point. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I don't like going deep sea fishing with my step. I don't care if it's 7 miles out there. That current can take me a lot of places really, really fast. And I do not trust, if that boat capsizes, I do not trust U.S. government and the Coast Guard to come find my happy ass. If I can't see land, and I don't think I got a chance, even though I probably don't because I'm fat, I probably don't got a chance to make it back. But I just need that hope. If I can still see shore, I'm fine. Simon, kudos to you for going out there. But big ships, though, y'all have, a different ball game than fisherman boats.
Oh, yeah, little single engine fishing boats. Don't do it with one. That's all I can tell you.
But either, like I said, I that's the perfect storm, though, because that is believable for most people. Or the other side, I did not have teleportation on my bingo card, though.
I didn't either. I thought it was just simple. These scientists were important. They wanted to steal them away from wherever they were going.
I'd urge everyone to look this chap's video footage up. It's out there on the internet.
Say his name again.
Ashton Forbes.
Ashton Forbes,
and that is at Just X Ashton would be the Twitter handle, at Just X Ashton. Go over there and watch a video and just, it's wild.
Yeah. And he did a long form interview with Zach from Red Pill 78. I believe that's the one I watched, who's got a channel on Rumble, Red Pill 78. And
there is a long-standing conspiracy, though, about a plane that disappeared in the 50s that landed in the 80s or the 90s or something. Like, have you heard that one?
No, I don't know about that.
No, that could be something that's been extremely embellished, because I've seen it in pop culture and stuff too. But apparently, like some plane landed with the same tail wing as a plane that went missing in the 50s, and it landed in the airport here in the States, and I guess taxied the runway and was freaked out or whatever and took back off in the sky.
Shit.
Yeah. Let me look this up. Y'all keep talking about this one, and let me.
That's like the 9/11 supposed 9/11 planes. Those tail numbers were seen flying around for years after 9/11.
I've seen some of the footage there where the
nose of the plane goes all the way through the building and then comes back in.
What happened there?
Well, I see. I'm a no planer. I don't think that there were any planes on 9/11. that what we watched on TV was a complete movie. It was a complete just Hollywood production.
Yeah, the nose footage.
It's ridiculous, right?
Like, wow,
it's ridiculous.
How something's been so poorly manipulated.
Yeah.
Yet it's still out there.
Yeah, and they still, and
they're standing behind.
Most people still believe that planes hit those buildings.
It's a toughie.
I mean, I don't know how many people still believe a plane hit the Pentagon, but I mean, come on. There's no way. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, where is it?
Yeah, exactly. Where is it?
Yeah.
Where's the plane in Pennsylvania, too? So I think a lot of that narrative was all just to get Americans riled up, ready to go. The whole let's roll narrative that came from Flight 93. I think that was all baloney. I don't buy it. But then, I mean, you get to a point where it's like, why would you believe anything they're telling you when they've lied about?
It's getting to that point, though, isn't it?
I've been at that point for a long time, but everybody else should be getting to that point by now. I mean, it's just blatant. It's blatant. But
we've lost so much faith in corporate media to start with. I think their days are numbered.
Well, it's just corporate media is government media.
Exactly.
I mean, Project Mockingbird was, our government is great at, like something like MK Ultra or Project Mockingbird, where then, Congress is going to have a hearing about it and get to the bottom of this and make sure this doesn't ever happen again. And so they have a hearing and they parade around some people and they slap them on the wrist a little bit and say, we're done with this now. Meanwhile, the program goes on. The program expands. I mean, it was in the 50s that they were in over 500 news stations and newspapers all around the United States. Where do you think it's at now? They are everywhere, And even if you're not on their payroll, you're being co-opted by them because of the information that you're getting from places is information created by them. I mean, the guy who was the director of the CIA in 1981, William Casey, said, "We will know that our disinformation campaign is complete when everything the American public believes is a lie." That's a quote from him.
That was Flight 914. Allegedly, it took off from New York and landed 37 years later. And now Wikipedia says it's been debunked or whatever. Of course, I don't really believe much about Wikipedia the way they're pretty compromised themselves.
That's come out recently that the head of Wikipedia said, "If you pay me, I'll put whatever you want me to put in there." Yeah.
So basically, they're compromised. So maybe it is true, maybe it isn't. When they say debunked, who knows? But go look that up.
Yeah, I'll check that.
Flight 914, apparently, like I said, some Stephen King stuff, Landoliers or whatever kind of thing or whatever, Langoliers. But yeah, look into that because, I mean, a plane just disappeared and there was 18 scientists on board. Let's not ignore that. You know what I mean? Let's not ignore they were very prominent. So
what was their area of expertise?
I think it was like semiconductors and that's the whole sort of thing.
But now, then again,
and chips. And,
I want people to also ground yourself and also put into perspective that this Austin Forbes guy could also very well be a Fed who has the backing to pay whatever he wants to back. And he's putting this out here so people will, and it is in fact faked, and they put it out here so people will in fact stop paying attention to it and stop. So, you know what I mean? You have to take everything with a grain of salt. And I mean, there was just such a massive new revelation since, last show got an F-615 or 35 missing, and we've already forgot about that, the aliens. But, all of a sudden,
is there any follow-up to that?
I mean, not that I know of.
Right.
I saw some crazy YouTube guy who was like going down there and like, I want to know where this plane's at. And he made like some funny video. But this is a guy who like tries to make conspiracies look stupid and everything else. But, I mean, I don't know what the deal with that was. I don't know if they ever actually really found that plane. I mean, how did they not know where? We went over this last time. How did they not know where it was? They know where everything is. They know what you and I are going to eat for breakfast 2 weeks from now, and yet they don't know where their $100 million aircraft is.
Or the Epstein client list.
Yeah.
Or where that strange little bag of coke appeared.
Or the
from
new, so you
the
hear
White
about
House.
the new sex ring thing that they uncovered?
That's perpetual.
The prostitute ring that they brought down, that all these high-ranking military and government officials
I read something
and
about
CEOs.
this.
Yeah, it was run out of like Fairfax County
Yep.
and DC and in Maryland. And apparently, like, they've confiscated detailed records.
Oh, dear.
First of all, hey, here's a good point. Like, what prostitution organization keeps detailed records unless it is a honeypot that is trying to, co-opt its users and have blackmail over?
Yeah, well, I mean, isn't that the
Right?
perfect way?
Well, I mean,
The perfect way is through, sexual scandals.
it's been going on for forever,
And you catch them, the next thing you own them,
That's right.
Well,
and it used to be like you could just get them in like a gay situation or just a philandering situation. And unfortunately, most people, with the morality of the nation and the world being decayed to the point it has, nobody cares about that anymore. A cheating husband or a cheating wife, that's every day. But so now it's gotten to.
So with my buddy in my pocket, for anybody out there that ever.
So now it's gotten to kids, Unfortunately, that's where we're at with this, is that it's, and the FBI, so they busted some pedophile down in like Texas or something. And the FBI had to come out and admit that, like, cheese pizza is a code word for pedophilia. And
hot dogs,
they basically,
and stuff. Well,
they basically came out. I was extremely involved in the whole Pizzagate researching and the Podestas and the Clinton emails that came out and all that stuff. And everything that we uncovered then is now being completely confirmed by the FBI to be true. So like the whole code word thing with cheese pizza and hot dogs and walnut sauce.
Well, because you remember the big thing about the WikiLeaks was that the emails and stuff Obama was sending, they were ordering like $50,000 worth of hot dogs for a White House dinner, and he wanted the succulent ones. Now, who in the hell is spending $50,000 on hot dogs? When you go to the White House, unless you're going there to see Donald Trump and get Big Macs, you're not expecting hot dogs. You know what I mean? Like, you're expecting fillets and steaks and ribeyes and sweet potatoes and creme brulee. You know what I mean? If you go to the White House and somebody serves me a effing hot dog, I'm going to say, fuck up.
Well, yeah, they were.
There we go, Billy.
They were.
I even held it three words previously. I held it.
You broke.
They.
I mean, this is mind-boggling.
They were importing.
This is
they were importing $55,000 worth of hot dogs from Chicago. For Obama.
And Obama's email said, I want to succulent ones.
These were all Podesta emails. So John Podesta, who was Obama's chief of staff, him and his brother, Tony Podesta, maybe the most influential lobbyist in D.C. for a long period of time. Yeah, could be.
Did you seen that?
Yeah, I did.
You know what I'm talking about.
But so when this whole thing broke, they were at the center of this, these Podestas. And they had some of the most disturbing art that you've ever seen in your life in their homes. And these homes were actually featured in like Washington, D.C. newspapers and magazines and stuff. And these would be like pictures of children being tortured, for example.
Yeah.
Or like being hung upside down and being like, blood dried like you would a deer. And stuff like that. It was really disturbing artwork and sculptures. And in all these emails, they're asking for, like, they're excited about the walnut sauce that's going to. Now, walnut sauce means like a little black boy. So they're excited about the walnut sauce that's going to be at the party. And then they were actually talking about this one person delivering kids because of all the fun they were going to have with these children in the hot tub out at this farmhouse in DC. I mean, this is all.
I want people to also know too. This isn't a Democrat or Republican thing. This is a government thing. This goes. I mean, you can find this stuff out. Go research.
The Franklin scandal.
Omaha Boys Club.
That's the Franklin scandal.
Yeah, this is George
that was
Bush
a Republican.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a Republican side of it. This is all of them.
Yeah,
this is not a partisan issue. This is bipartisan.
Yeah. Oh, they can always get together when it comes to being the scummiest people.
Well,
on
that's
the
right.
planet.
They can always get together when it comes to
Bombing somebody.
when it comes to torturing children and doing bad things to them. They're all in on that. But I mean,
so when these stories break, how can we sit around as civilized citizens we're sitting on our hands?
Because the government has a monopoly on violence. And if we try to go in there single-handedly, we'll be labeled as some kind of a domestic terrorist. If we all go in there as a group, they'll come in and bust us all and pretty much do the same thing. So they've got the monopoly on things. The only way it happens is if enough people in this country at the same time rise up and stand outside of every police station in the country, every courthouse in the country, and say enough is enough.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well,
That's
and
the
there's
only
an
way.
interesting connection to all this. So right now, Elon Musk is suing Media Matters. Okay. The head of Media Matters is David Brock. David Brock, who was a Clinton, mercenary. Well, David Brock was the boyfriend of James Alefantis. Now, James Alefantis was the owner of Comet Ping Pong Pizza, which is where this whole conspiracy centers around and why it was called, well, one of the reasons it was called Pizzagate. Now, James Alefantis in French means child lover. Okay, that's what this guy's name means. And if you looked at this
one
guy's
of the most prominent places in DC, top 25, and it's just a pizza joint.
He was one of the 50 most influential people in Washington D.C. This James Alefantis,
pizza joint,
the owner of a pizza joint,
like a Frank's.
Now, yeah, and they also, this pizza joint had all sorts of, there was some weird shit going on at this place. They had the weirdest bands playing in there that were like screaming, like playing like screaming metal music about like, doing things to children. And if you looked at this guy's Instagram, it was full of, like pictures of kids like taped down to tables, and then like comments saying like chicken lover, which chicken lover means, you doing,
dear.
I could go into graphic detail. I won't, but, then what they did is then they marched that guy into Comet Ping Pong Pizza and had he fired off a shot with a rifle or whatever. And he somehow hit the hard drive of the computer that had a lot of this. So basically, here's the deal. This Comet Ping Pong Pizza, its website had a back end to it where he was actually bartering and selling. You could buy kids basically for services and stuff through this, pizza place. And then they have this guy go in there. He actually shoots the computer, supposedly. And so then all that information is gone. Well, it turns out the guy they had go in there and shoot that computer, his dad was actually like a board member that was partnered with the Clinton Foundation in doing things in Haiti. And we know what the Clintons were doing in Haiti. They were smuggling children out of Haiti to, to have their crazed sex parties with. Because the Laura Silsby, who is now the head of the Amber Alert, or was one of the heads of the Amber Alert system, was actually arrested trying to get like 36 kids out of Haiti back into the United States. They threw her in jail down there. Bill and Hillary Clinton flew down there personally to get her out of jail. Ooh. Yeah. So it's this whole web of, people. And like, here's a good example. Jake Tapper, the guy from CNN, his wife him and his wife were quoted in, one of these magazines up there saying their favorite date night spot was Comet Ping Pong Pizza. Oops. Yeah. It's,
And let me throw this in here too, and this is very recent right here. Journalists James Gordon Meek and Slade Sommer, both people who were lauded for debunking Pizzagate theories, big fans of John Podesta, both been arrested of child pornography.
That's right.
These people both were lauded for debunking Pizzagate, and they have both been arrested for child pornography.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to put this,
Wow.
Put a little bow on it. Yeah. It's
yeah, that whole thing is, I mean, like,
it's sickening. But people need to realize this is what's going on, and this is what is controlling our world, and this is how they control people in this world.
Yeah, honeypots.
Yeah, is by
that's what Epstein Island was. It was a honeypot.
Yeah,
just like the Playboy Mansion.
Well, and guess what? The Podestas owned an island like 8 miles away from Little St. James, Epstein's Island. I just found that out recently. And more than likely, the Podesta Island had a decommissioned submarine base on it. So more than likely, they were submarining around down there to all these islands and taking God knows who, God knows where down there under the sea. Yeah.
I'd like to see the log entries for visitors on that island.
Yeah. I mean,
well, this is such a deep subject, and I know if anybody's got kids out there, it just infuriates us. And you go on forever and ever and ever, and we'll bounce back up on this. But I want to talk about the biggest thing that's happened since the last time we had Stuart on the show, and let's just get right to it. It's crazy. We've been this long into it. We're having to get to it, but for the love of God, we're on the cusp of a second World War III since the last time you've been on here. Israel, Palestine, this whole thing. I mean, there's the world has been set on fire by this whole event. I mean, we can call it. It is a world war now. Whether it's not at the scale of the ones, and maybe that's why. But as far as the amount of countries that are involved with this thing, Yemen, Iraq, Jordan, Syria, United States, Israel,
Iran,
Lebanon, Iran, Saudi, all the countries in the EU. You know what I mean? It's just. What the hell happened, Stuart? Because we talked about this a little bit last week with Bird, and it was a very more of a straightforward conversation, but there is a bunch of nuance to this, and there's a lot of things behind the scene that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
The Russians are sending air defense systems to the Syrian border.
Well,
that won't end well.
No, it seems like it's kind of escalating, and it seems like it lulls down. But there's so much propaganda from this.
Yeah.
And I've been in the middle when I say in the middle, basically my stance on the thing is I don't want American tax dollars going to support either side of this, because they are.
Yeah.
American tax dollars are going to support Hamas. You can say what you want to. That aid, that money, it's getting to the people who need it in that neck of the woods. We're also sending money and sending supplies and military forces to Israel. I don't want any of that. This is not a problem. We need to get the hell out of these areas and stop it. But let's jump into the meat and bones of this right here. One of the top 5 militaries in the entire world. This not January 6th.
Mm-hmm.
This is a comparable to 9/11. Right? The greatest militaries and defense systems in the world are overtaken by a bunch of people wearing flip-flops and robes. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, I wouldn't believe what they're trying to sell with that whole narrative for a second. I didn't believe it from the first images that I saw. But definitely, look,
I
definitely don't believe.
I trust what the Israeli government is saying a little less than what Hamas is saying. Yeah. Not by much, but they're both pretty.
The way that I look at this whole situation is, don't believe any of that, because even now the Israelis are coming out and admitting that they were shooting and killing their own people that day. So
now we're talking about the music festival.
Yeah, the music festival.
Where they were gliding in
supposedly gliding in on paragliders and like those, the things with the motors on them with the wings that it's ridiculous. It's such a ridiculous story, considering that it's been well documented that the Iron Dome and the border between Israel and Gaza is like the most secure, most monitored border in the world. They can tell when a mosquito comes flying too close to that border, and it's alerted. So obviously there was clearly a complete stand down order given. Obviously there was coordination. I think it has. But obviously there was coordination between Israel and whoever these people were that they allowed to come in and do this. My guess is, and look, one of the things we should know based on from all these events is that the powers that be in this world have no problem killing their own citizens. The American government has no problem killing American citizens. The Israeli government has no problem killing Israeli citizens. So you just can't believe any of it. That's the problem. But that's where we're at in the world.
What's the goal here? In the conspiracy,
well, I
hate to say conspiracy because honestly, at the end of the day, we're all proved to be truthers. But until the truth does come out, what is a consensus? Why did this happen? Why was it allowed to happen? What is the ultimate goal through this? Are they trying to draw?
I think you got to look at what's been going on in Israel over the past 5, 6, 7 years now. The government over there has collapsed 4 or 5 times over the past 5 or 6 years. I think that it's in complete and utter turmoil because of the absolute lunacy of the leadership of that government and of just the whole Zionist movement in the world. There's a difference between Jewish people and Zionism. That's something that needs to, I guess, kind of be laid out there first. I have no problem with Jews and the Jewish faith. I have a serious problem with Zionism because Zionism is kind of this crazed ideology that
explain that to people because there's such a difference.
Well,
here.
They'll try to call you anti-Semitic for being anti-Zionist, and it's not the same thing. Zionism is kind of the combination of the evangelicals and part of some of these kind of crazed.
But it goes back to the late 1800s. So I was listening to something the other day about the history of it and kind of went into detail about how it came around in the late and it kind of made sense back then. It was like, okay, they weren't necessarily targeting the part of the world that they ended up settling on, but I know actually they did. They were like, well, hey, there's nothing really going on here. Let's start, there was a movement back in the late 1800s, early 19 to move Jews to this part because there was not a lot going on there. They were like, hey, we've been shit on quite a bit over, centuries and centuries. Let's find a place where we can all call our home. And they started trying to encourage people to move there economically. Yeah. And there's a lot of history there.
There's a lot of history and it's a lot of conflicting things. And, like for example, towards the end of World War II, Hitler was like, look, he went to over 40, 50 different countries and said, look, I'll give them all to you if you'll just take them. And nobody wanted them. And
kind of like similar to the Palestinians now.
Well, yeah. Right? Now all these Arab nations, they won't take the Palestinians. But there's also a reason that they've been kicked out of 110 countries around the world. Let's not pretend like, they aren't mischievous and devious. And I mean, look at what they've done here in this country. They took over Hollywood.
No, we're talking about the Zionists.
Well, we're talking about Zionists / some of the Jews. I mean,
because I don't. And I'll push back a little bit on that. And the reason is because so many of these people will say I'm Jewish, but they're not really practicing. You know what I mean?
That's true.
They really aren't. And they use that for whatever reason. It's a big Hollywood thing, but they're not practicing, and that's such a crazy dichotomy we've got going.
It's hard to delineate.
It really is.
It's hard to delineate. So we'll just call them Zionists.
But the people that claim,
let's do that. Yeah, they claim to be Jewish. They're more just Zionists than Jewish, but they've been very devious in the world. They've been very. There's a reason that the memes of the happy merchant that these things exist because it's been true. I mean, look at the usury that is going on in our economic system right now. That's not done by you and me. It's that was set up by somebody else. Jesus marched into that temple. And the only time he really showed any violence or force was when he went after those money changers.
He turned
those tables over and got out that whip and went after them. And so, So it's a hard thing to talk about because there have been a lot of things that are done that make people very upset. Let's just look at the Israel-Palestine dialectic for a second. I don't blame normal Palestinians for 1 second for being so angry at Israel for what has been done to them.
I can agree with that because they are
years.
essentially in an open air prison.
Look, they've been tortured. They've been mocked mercilessly. They've had their streets flooded with shit. And these are all things that then the Israeli Jews standing on the other side of the fence stand there and point and laugh at them about. And it's like, how much of that can you take before, you want to do something about it? Now, here's the other thing. I don't believe for a second that the Palestinians actually fairly in a fair election elected Hamas as their leaders.
No.
I don't believe it.
Now, we need people to understand
that was manipulated by Israel.
That Israel created Hamas.
Yes, they did.
The Israeli government created Hamas.
Just like we created Al-Qaeda.
Just like we created the Mujahideen. Just like we created Al-Qaeda. ISIS.
That's right.
We created all of these.
You create these
either
things.
directly or indirectly.
Yeah. You create these things to use them on the chessboard. And eventually, I think they'll say it's by accident that, now it's being used against us. I think that's the plan all along. And it's to create these narratives that then end up getting you into these situations.
To justify the Alphabet Boys' existence.
That's right.
We're like, we know we got these terrorists now. You need us to protect you from us. You know what I mean?
That's right.
And that's
yeah. Well, and if you look on the grand scheme of things, they want less people in the world. What do wars do? Wars.
I think the environmentalists are very much behind that.
Yeah,
that's that's a well-known fact.
Yeah,
and it's been quoted countless times. We need a population of X. Well, how do you get to that without reducing a population significantly?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Well, this is how.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you roll out a vaccine that kills a lot of people. Then you do things like this. But so you can't really blame the Palestinians on one hand for being just fed up with it to the point where we can't take anymore. But at the same time, you can't just, go and kill a bunch of innocent people either, because that's what they've been doing to you. And that's what you're standing up and saying is so horrible and wrong. But I do understand
the frustration.
The frustration gets to a point where it's like no one is listening to us. No one is understanding what we're going through here.
Let's just call a spade a spade.
So it's
as far as the world is concerned, Palestinians are cannon fodder.
Yeah.
The Palestinians are the world's version of abortion here in the United States. Basically, they are a talking point that politicians and people in power use to persuade people left and right. But at the end of the day, they don't care about them. They don't really, you know what I mean? It's like, and that's just the long and the short of it. Nobody wants to take them. Nobody wants to really help them out. And it's a shit situation we find ourselves in. It really is, because what do you do? I mean,
well, there's an insurmountable problem behind all of this, and it comes down to the prophecy.
That's the other thing.
And when you start, justifying your actions to fit biblical prophecy. That now we're on really thin ice.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why they were moved there in the first place in 47, 48, was to fulfill this whole prophecy. And that's why I've had an issue with it all along, is like, well, you can't, that's not how it's supposed to happen. It's not supposed to happen because you read it in a book, so we're going to make it happen.
You're going to make it happen.
Right.
Crazy you brought that up. I'm going to get to a few Twitter questions, or X. God, why do I keep saying Twitter? The X questions here.
Because it's Twitter.
Let me tell you. But since you brought that up, you brought up the prophecies. Shout out to one of our followers over there at FreeJerry88. Red heifers on the mount. Do you know much about that?
Oh, the Temple Mount?
The red heifers and stuff. Even South Park did an episode about this, making fun of it. But do you know what the red heifers are?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, I'm going to butcher this, but and I don't guess we'll talk about it but y'all look it up. Maybe we'll talk about it on the next show. But apparently, there's something to do with X amount of red heifers that come around. They're the they get studied and looked at and if there's any blemishes on them whatsoever, they're discarded. But once one comes around that's completely blemish free and all this kind of crazy stuff, it's supposed to signal like the next round of whatever the apocalypse.
Whatever he's prophesied.
I'm butchering, yes, but this is biblical stuff right here, apparently.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe look into that. We'll talk about that next time. I'm sorry we can't answer your question on that one, but I mean, just this whole the whole mess
the
over
Temple
there.
Mount basically has to be removed from the Temple Mount.
Yes,
and that is one of the big Muslim shrines.
Yes.
So, for that to fall into prophecy, now we're going into the depths of that would be an oh shit moment.
Yeah.
Because to remove the Muslim site on Temple Mount,
and all sorts of Jewish media and stuff has been saying over the past several years that it's coming.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting rid of that damn thing.
Yeah.
One way or another, it's going. So it's... but then you'll get...
And that's insurmountable. That argument really is insurmountable. It is. On biblical terms.
It is. Well, and then that's where you get like these Christian Zionists that come in and say, well, look, see, this is just prophecy. This is what's happening. It's prophecy. Well, but if it's purposely made prophecy, is it really prophecy?
Well, that's the thing.
You know what I mean? Like
it's
very dicey. It's shallow waters.
It could be very contrived prophecy.
That's
not the prophecy you're looking for.
No, it's not.
Because that is actually anti-prophecy.
Yes, that's devilish prophecy.
Yeah.
It's that's the thing.
It's a knife edge.
It really is.
Yeah.
That's it.
But I mean, that's like, look, I know that there were lots of people locked up during World War II. I know for a fact there were concentration camps. My grandfather was in one of them. But I also know that there weren't 6 million of them that were killed. But if you look through all the prophetic teachings, it all said this 6 million number. Starting back in the 1800s, they were prophesizing that 6 million Jews would be killed at some point, and that will bring about the return to where they're at now. And so all of these things have been contrived by man to happen. Whether they actually
work.
Yeah, whether they actually happen or not, considering I've never seen a survivor that had a tattoo of more than 6 numbers. But yet there were 6 million of them, so not one over 999,999 survived. You know what I mean? It's like there's not time to get into all that because that's a whole nother ball of wax. But the whole thing has been contrived, in my opinion. So
it is definitely used modern. I mean, you flick through Netflix or Amazon, and there are hundreds of Nazi propaganda documentaries and movies. They never focus on any other war, don't focus on Armenian genocide or the fact that communism killed like 130 million people.
Exponentially more.
Chinese, anywhere between 50 and 100 million in the Mao Revolution.
Democide.
I mean, nothing, none of that. And so I mean, and that's the thing about it is like, I don't know either way, and I'm not going to jump on because I just judge people individually. I don't really care what religion you are, what race you are, anything like that. Spike is Jewish, and I think he's one of the most awesome people on the frickin' planet, and he's done so much for us. I know Arab people I hung out with in college, people from Turkey and Lebanon. This is just after getting back from Iraq. Black people, it doesn't matter, like everybody everywhere. But at the end of the day, there are It really makes you think when if you question anything in the least, then you're considered an anti-Semite or a demigod or whatever the case. And that's just ridiculous because, I mean, they're you talk about the 6 million number, there are studies and stuff. It's like, well, you'd have to kill X amount of people consecutively on this many an hour to make this kind of thing. And even if it did or it didn't, you still being able to question it shouldn't be something that
you shouldn't be demonized for.
No,
it.
there's
there's the problem.
There's only one narrative that you're really, and this is around the world in a lot of countries, they'll throw you in jail for talking about, and that's the one. So what does that tell you?
Yeah.
That's the one we all need to be talking about.
They're like it's a Texas if I'm not mistaken, a Texas state law right now that basically if you go against the narrative or boycott Israel or something, the state will boycott you. They won't do business. It's like
that's Florida. That's DeSantis.
I think it's Texas as well. Yeah. And I mean, like, and this goes into the dual citizenship thing. There are a lot of
there's a group who I think is probably Fed run down there in Florida. The Goyim Defense League, the GDL.
Yeah.
And they were going around putting flyers up during COVID that showed that all of these people doing all these things are all dual Israeli American citizens that are in these positions in our government. And DeSantis flew over there to Israel to sign an anti-free speech bill where now they'll lock you up in jail if you put one of those flyers up. And I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, that stuff should be questioned.
Crazy. You're not allowed to.
That's circumventing federal law, and you can't do that as a state.
Well, old Mr. 3-inch high heel boots is doing it.
Yeah, you cannot do that.
Did you see that meme that Trump sent out with him in those thigh-high boots? Dude? Oh, no. Trump's the man when it comes to that sort of stuff.
He'll destroy anyone with a meme, and it only takes one.
It's unbelievable.
Boom, done.
Speaking of the man, I want to jump to something else real quick. Argentina.
Oh, dude.
Let's talk Argentina. Let's talk Javier Milei.
An ANCAP president in Argentina.
This has happened. I am an anarcho-capitalist. I've said this on the show many a times. There is an anarcho-capitalist president now in Argentina. This is, I mean, and at the end of the day, whether, you know, maybe he's a shill or not, or whatever the case may be, the important thing is that the message has resonated amongst the people. And that's all that matters at the end of the day, because we have the power. Like Spike Cohen says for his nonprofit, You Are the Power, which I suggest everybody go follow. If you got a couple $, send them their way. I donate to them every single month. Big supporters of the show, and they're doing a lot of good things in the Appalachian region, but people are the power. And if you've got that kind of a message resonating down in South America, what is that going to do for the rest of the world?
I love it. I mean,
well, their currency's been in the toilet for decades.
Yeah.
So they've been rife for all sorts of inflation scares, bank runs. You know, they've been on the verge of collapsing as a nation state for a long while.
And there we go again. You just mentioned Argentina and just some random South American country, and his MI6 knowledge of the region just pops right in.
Well, he's exactly right. I mean, they've been.
He is, but it ain't because of the reasons you're right. Because you don't study the same boards that he studies. Is all I'm trying to get at.
I understand exactly where.
No. What I'm saying is you know about Argentina for the same reason I know about Argentina. He knows about Argentina for completely. How did he just jump in here with this kind of information?
Billy, you can catch me in this all day long. I've been got again.
Well, that's common though. That
he's James Bond.
Argentina,
this is a real life James Bond.
Argentina has been at the center of a bunch of chicanery for a long time because of their financial situations down there.
Yes, but so many other countries are, but other countries don't let.
But they're also a very strategic location for the world. You know, we've talked about Antarctica and we've talked about some of those things before.
The mineral well.
Yeah, Argentina is a very strategic place to have control of.
Which is and that goes on to why the Brits are in the Falklands.
Yeah. And the whole Falklands War that happened.
And you know, the 82 war. Yeah. And now that this chap,
that's right,
the Argentinian fellow, is actually looking to reclaim the Falklands, which, again, it's a political talking point that nothing will come of it, because all of the Falkland Islanders have done referendum after referendum and saying, we're staying with the Crown.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you ever overcome that, where the whole populace says, actually, no, we're not yours, we're theirs.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't know how you overcome that.
Maybe he'll talk some sense into him. Who knows?
Well, I think that one of the reasons they just would rather stay with the Crown is because of the instability that Argentina has had over the past.
Yeah.
So if he can provide some sort of, like, if
sell itself.
If he really does La Fuera all of these agencies that he plans
or
on
half
getting
of
rid
them,
of.
or a quarter of them.
If he can do some of this stuff, I mean,
He'll set the world on fire doing that.
He's terrific. I mean, I love the chainsaw wielding.
I foresee him going the way of Noriega, though. You know, they'll
look. I think they're going to try to get to him. They'll try to get to him. But look, I think that what you're seeing, and this started with Trump, man. It did. It started with Trump. Whether Trump is as for real as what some of us hope he is or not, it doesn't even matter at this point. This whole
it's the message.
This whole populist uprising
it's the message.
and it was brewing for a long time. Look, it's why our government here was running a thing called PATCON, Patriot Conspiracy, back in the 80s and into the 90s, because they could already see that people had enough of the globalism coming. So they were trying to infiltrate the militia movement back then. That's how Ruby Ridge happened. It's how Waco happened. It's how Oklahoma City happened.
We're going to get into Oklahoma City. That's one we haven't talked about. And I've got a guy on Twitter that has researched this.
It's why 9/11 happened. It's why all of this stuff happened. So this has been brewing for 30, 40 years at this point. Look, you had Bolsonaro get elected in Brazil, and then they just stole the election from him again. You had Trump here, and they had to steal the election from him. You've got the guy in Argentina. They just elected Geert Wilders in the Netherlands.
Now, that's a shocker.
Yeah, a big one.
That's a shocker.
You have even
even
New Zealand.
The mayor of Dallas just switched parties over the Republican Party. Hey, look, and hey, I know about a month or so ago, month and a half, when everything popped off in Israel, there was a big backlash, because Black Lives Matter came out in support of, but many organizations out there. The Black Lives Matter founder of the state of Rhode Island, I believe, has just recently came out and said, we're voting for Trump. Yeah. He said there's no other way around it. He said, you can say what you want to. You can try and feed us all the bull hockey you want to, but BLM in Rhode Island supports Donald. So I mean,
it's coming. It's coming.
Well, and all of this happens because of a sovereign state is on the verge of failure economically.
Yeah.
So that allows that freedom message so much traction.
It does.
And to say that we're not that far behind an Argentina or a Venezuela, really isn't.
There.
It really isn't that. It doesn't take much to join them dots.
Spike Co in 2028.
We're right there.
Let's all rebound, rebuild.
Look, even New Zealand, who had maybe some of the most draconian leadership during COVID.
Lordy. You sneaky bastard.
Even New Zealand has turned things around and gotten rid of that crazed lunatic they had as their prime minister, that Jacinda Ardern or whatever her name was, and has gone more right wing with their leadership.
It's and I'm not much of a right winger, but I'm definitely a hardcore.
Well, you know what I mean, like
but
right-leaning,
the values of the right-leaning, I would still to this day.
Yeah.
If you're going to give me an option as somebody that sits in the middle and tries to find the best of as much as we can, I would still say that the conservative values still is what I probably lean towards most.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and it's just simple.
Look,
it's just because you have a better society.
This is sweeping around the world, and that's what. Look, like I kind of said before, this is all going to come to a head by the end of the decade. Which side actually wins out here? This crazed, lunatic, great reset merged with machine transhumanism idea that these world elites have been crafting for the past 100 years, or it's going to go ultra freedom. It's going to go 1776. It's one or the other. I don't think there's going to be this middle ground like we've been living under. And you see, and look, the world elites know that they're outnumbered millions to one.
Billions.
Yeah, billions to one. That's why they have to use this crazy technology and the propaganda. I mean, And the propaganda machine, fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, is just spinning out of control at this point. Their lies have gotten so bold and ridiculous that their lies are just waking more and more people up instead of keeping more and more people down at this point.
I mean, none of it's passing the sniff test.
Not anymore. No.
You know,
none of
so
it.
At a certain point, I would love to see, the liberty and freedom explode exponentially, and this duopoly and globalism needs to be crushed.
That's the thing. There is no middle ground with it. It has to be completely done away with this time.
Yeah.
Look, old Senator McCarthy gets a bad name. Everybody, McCarthyism. Oh, it's so bad. If he had been allowed to run wild.
Hold on, you're talking about McCarthy in the 50s, not McCarthy from
not this,
recently.
Not this jackass McCarthy.
Okay,
now.
yeah, just
no, the McCarthy from the 50s that was claiming that we had been infiltrated by basically a bunch of Nazis and communism in the 1950s, and they made him out to be like he was some crazed lunatic looking for a commie under every rock. Well, he was exactly right. He was onto their stench then. And if he had been allowed to run wild and get rid of those people then, we would not be in the situation we're in today, at least in this country.
Yeah. I mean, it's the infiltration into so many of the fundamental elements of U.S. society has been it's been infiltrated,
and the education system is chief number one in that.
I mean, absolutely.
Look at these commies that they're producing coming out of these schools. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's
really gotten to a point where it's so destructive sending your kid to college. I mean, it's you're paying.
I'm not sending my kids to public school.
You're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to have your kid
radicalize your kid
come out to hate you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everything that you've stood for and believed in.
And the radicalization is actually full bore on now.
Yeah.
There's no hiding it.
No, there's no hiding it.
And, when you send your kids off to colleges and universities, you better prepare them because they are going to be under radicalization rules.
Well, and good luck. I mean, I guess you can try to just hide and, try to get through. But the problem is peer pressure is such a strong psychological force.
Oh, they know what they've been doing.
Yeah. I mean, that even if you don't really believe it or whatever, you're going to end up at some meeting somewhere where you're asked to go do this or that, and you're going to end up doing it. And then you're in, or they catch you at some party and they, blackmail you with something. I mean, that's what these people do. They are evil to the core.
Yeah.
These people.
Very, very sophisticated.
Yeah, it is.
All right.
By the way, I didn't mention one thing when we were touching on Argentina.
Yeah.
They were also part of, towards the tail end and after the Second World War, they were into mass migration of
Nazis.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, the memes right. Actually, Brandon, our good buddy at Appalachia Stanley, go follow him on X at State of Appalachia at Appalachia Stanley. He shared a meme right after Millie was elected that said libertarians and German citizens, and it had Borat saying, "We go to Argentina."
and you see, before the German invasion of Argentina, one of the biggest, and it's a little known fact, and it just jumped to the front of my mind for some reason. One of the biggest immigrant populations in Argentina prior to that was the Welsh.
Ah.
And the biggest Welsh population outside of Wales is in Argentina. Just another stupid fact.
That's weird.
It is weird.
It's very odd, and something that probably CIA asset would know. Okay.
Thanks, Billy.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're getting ready to jump. We did something good today. We got in here early. We started early. It's still semi-early compared to normal. Heather, I love you. We're gonna take a break and take a leak, and we're gonna come back for the subscriber only. So,
30 minutes, Billy.
That's all we need. That's all we need. So we're gonna go take a leak. We're coming back for the subscriber only episode. So you need to go to patreon.com/getontap. I want to talk a couple of things. One, we're going to talk about is McDonald's sending messages into your dreams. Have you seen about this lately?
No, I haven't.
Okay, then we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. A couple of things. We're going to go from questions from X. Please go over, listen to that show before we get off here for the normal show for everybody else. Simon, this past weekend, you missed out on it. And I hate to say it, we had a photo shoot. Once again, massive thanks to photography by Beth Preston. She came up there to our good friend Amos, his property. We took some amazing photos. We're going to share them all out here in the next couple of days.
Billy in his finest.
But you can go. I was dressed like Cousin Eddie from the National. I mean, to the T. I had the entire costume. But go look at it. We're going to share it here soon. It's going to be part of our thing. But that night, I begged Simon to come out. It was our good friends at Living Proof Brewery. Phenomenal. And they have knocked it out of the park here lately. They had Noah Spencer here a couple of weeks ago. The kid has been on The Voice, I think, here lately. I think he's still competing, which has already been pre-recorded. So, but I spoke with him. They had him out there. Place was packed. Hopefully we'll have him on the show here in the near future. But this past weekend, for the 20th anniversary, they had failed musician Joshua Grice and the Hardball Grice Band. And Simon, let me tell you how awesome this event was that you missed. I showed up in my Cousin Eddie outfit, okay?
Oh, brilliant. I knew you were going to.
I had to. With my wife in attendance by my side the majority of the time, you would be flabbergasted by how many women threw themselves at me in this outfit. So many of them told me how I had multiple women come up to me, and I love you, Tara, and this is why I had multiple women come up to me and ask me what is on under the robe. And I had to tell them, well, underwear, obviously, because Josh Grice is playing music, and I know that if he's around, he's going to lift this robe up in front of everybody and God and themselves. And guess what? The entire time, the only person who did that for the entire night was Josh Grice. He's the only one that came and lifted my freaking robe. Fortunately, I had my underoos on. But the best part of this night, Simon, was that he was sick. So, and not to wish bad ill on him or bad health, but his voice was gone, so he couldn't sing. So it was beautiful. You got to go celebrate the great musicianship of the Hardball Grice Band. You didn't have to suffer through the singing and the talentless Josh Grice doing it. He spoke a little bit and invited people up on stage, all the great musicians that played with him over the years. It was a phenomenal time. Didn't have to hear him sing one song and ruin it and run it into the ground like he always does. You missed a good time, Simon, but it was beautiful.
I was just done by then, mate.
You should have been. So for everybody here, real quick, if you want to go listen to this Patreon episode, it's patreon.com/getontap. We're going to talk about McDonald's. They are beaming ads into your brain at night. This is straight out of, what's the Matt Groening show?
The Simpsons.
No, the other one, Futurama. This is straight after they did an episode on Futurama, did an episode about this. They are doing this kind of thing. We're going to Twitter questions and anything you do at patreon.com/getontap. It really goes to support us. If you want to support us in other ways, it's at Get On Tap for Venmo and Cash App, or at WB Riddle for PayPal. Support us. Thank you for supporting us. Stuart, thank you for coming out here and stepping in here tonight. Simon, for our subscribers, we'll see you here
very shortly.
Tune on over. Bye.